Good evening, everybody. Could I have your attention? Have you take your seats? Want to make sure the video's on? Give me a signal. Okay. Good evening. My name is Jane Wanderer. I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters of Butte County. This is our third and final candidate forum prior to the June 3rd primary election. Each time we do this, I tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. I try to mix it up a little, but basically we're an organization that started the very beginning of 1920, and in August of that year, the women's right to vote, the 19th Amendment, was passed into law. And ever since then, actually before, we've been working to help citizens have access to voting and be able to cast an informed vote when they do vote. Sometime in the 70s, we even let men join our organization. So we have a number of men who are members of our local league, and you're welcome to join if you're interested. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan and nonprofit. We don't support any candidate, and we don't support any political party. What we do support is being politically active. We are political. We have two sides to ourselves. One side is educational, which is what we're doing tonight. It's sort of the extra nonprofit side of our organization. The other side is taking action on issues, and those issues are ones that we study, both at the local, state, and national level. We meet, we understand, we come to what's called consensus, which is a different way of coming to an agreement on an issue. We don't vote by hands. We get a sense of the group. And when we're ready to go, we take action. We speak at legislative bodies, we participate in lawsuits, we write letters to the editor. But we only do that after we have taken study and consensus. If any of you are interested in joining the league, in the lobby, there's some membership envelopes. We have a couple of publications for this election. One is called our Pros and Cons. There are also some copies of that. We do that every election on the ballot issues. And it's pretty much a nonpartisan plus side, minus side. And later tonight, we'll have Professor Charlie Turner from Chico State University go over the two ballot propositions, 41 and 42, that are on the ballot this time. And another piece of literature we have for the election is called the Easy Voter Guide. I think all of you that show up probably are already pretty well educated voters, but these are available for the community. And the other thing the league does at the state level is an organization called Smart Voter, smartvoter.org, are the two posters here on the side. Smartvoter.org is a league website. We offer every candidate in every election in the state of California an opportunity to post their candidacy on our web pages at no charge. And so each candidate is offered that opportunity every election. And quite a few of our candidates in Butte County have put their information up there. So if you'd like to go take a look. And even those who haven't, their candidate statements are up there. So anyway, take a look at www.smartvoter.org. Now to the business of the evening. Please turn off your cell phones. No videos, other than the press, may be taken during the forum. The league requires that any videos of our forums be shown only in total. The candidates are not allowed to cut segments from the forum and use them for their political promotion. We will post the video of tonight on our league website within the next couple of days, and I will get that address out to all the candidates, and they are welcome to link to it from their website. Tonight you're all on Channel 11, Community Access Television. It's a Comcast channel. Now, for the evening, contests that we're going to be having are going to be the supervisor of the 2nd District, county supervisor, supervisor of the 3rd District, the senior Superior Court judge for Department 7, and the County of Butte treasurer and tax collector. We'll start first with the county supervisor for District 2, and I'll let Eleanor Anderson, our voter service chair, tell you how the evening's going to go. Oh, one thing. If you have questions and you don't know it already, you can fill out a question for the candidate. Hold up your hand if you don't have a card. One of our people will bring you a card. When you've completed your question, hold it up, and they will bring it up to the desk for us to ask your questions of the candidates. Over here we have Linda Furr. Back there we have Stephanie Gilbert. Up here I have two ladies who are our timers, Carol Burr and Mary Lee Muter. They will let the candidates know how long they've been talking and when they need to stop talking. And they have little signs that they hold up. Would you show the audience? Okay. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Eleanor right now, and she is being assisted by Sean Murphy, who is also a member of the League of Women Voters.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I know you're not here to hear me speak. So, to move on quickly, this candidate forum, again, is for our District 2 supervisors race. Candidates this evening are Larry Wall and Andrew Merkel. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to present their opening statements, 2 minutes each for a closing statement, and 1 minute to respond to each question. Questions will be fielded by David Little, the editor of the Chico Enterprise Record, and Tom Gascoigne, representing the Chico News and Review. And I will be asking the questions that come from the audience. If you do have a question, please make sure that it gets handed up to us. There is quite a bit of interest in this race. And again, let's get to this. So, Mr. Little, if you would like to, hang on a second, opening statements first. We did a coin toss, and Mr. Wall has opted to open and go first with his opening statement. Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you to the League of Women Voters here in Chico. I do appreciate the opportunity to appear before you tonight, and I thank all of those who are in attendance tonight, particularly, and those out in the TV world who may be watching in. So this is a pretty good crowd tonight, and I appreciate all of you showing up. As your county supervisor for the past 3.5 years, I've made public safety my #1 priority. I've fought hard to preserve your right to the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of your property. It's an important issue. It comes under the heading of protection of your rights and your quiet enjoyment of your property. I've also focused on the bringing of good jobs to Chico. And one of the things that we do with that is making sure that the regulations that we have here in Butte County are such that they can be negotiated easily and without interruption, although many of them are because of state and federal mandate. We encourage employers to expand here in Butte County. We ask that employers come from outside of Butte County, although California makes that proposition very, very difficult. But we do have some successes under our belt in economic development and job creation and job attraction. And also, since joining the board in 2011, Butte County has spent less than it takes in. It lives within its means and has paid down debt. The county has a healthy reserve, and we do not borrow money to meet our ongoing obligations anymore. I do have an open door policy. I encourage people from all over the county, not just District 2, to come and visit or to call. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Mr. Merkel.
Can you read the question back again, real quick, please?
Opening statement.
It's your opening statement.
Turn your mic on.
Okay, here we go. Thank you. My name is Andrew Merkel. I've been in Chico since 1999, and I've watched the county grow. But in the past 3.5 years since Mr. Wall has been elected, I've watched the county deteriorate. Why? He wants to make marijuana an issue. It's a job builder. We have a $400 million economy that we're missing out on, and we need to regulate it better. I know that's what you guys are here to talk about or hear about is marijuana, but the one thing about District 2 is we don't grow marijuana in District 2. We grow houses, and we need to work on development and take care of our infrastructure. It's easy to say that the county doesn't takes in money and spends as little as possible, but I realize that our roads are falling apart, our sewer plant needs work, we need to develop the infill inside of Chico and annex some of these properties over to the city. So we're going to be working on job development through real estate, increasing with the property taxes by building new homes. I always have an open door policy too. You can always call me. My number's been available since I signed up to run against Larry Wall, and nobody's actually given me a call. So if you're here, tonight's the night to meet me and see what I can actually do for District 2 and not do for my friends. I'm here to create jobs, bring in new businesses. We need businesses that people want to go to. We're lacking that in this part of the county. We got Trader Joe's, but how about some new businesses that want to come in and do business here? So thank you very much.
Mr. Little, first question to you.
So you both talked about growth in your opening statements. Where should the county grow? Should it grow in cities? Should it grow in county pockets? You have to plan for thousands more residents in the coming years. So where should the county grow?
Mr. Merkel, you'll take the question first.
Okay. We've got a lot of infill. I drive around. There's a lot of, because I'm a real estate investor, I look for properties to purchase, and I'm constantly out on the road looking at stuff. We're stopped in a little bit of a development at the Green Line, and we're going to have to look at the infill. That's where we're going to be able to develop jobs, get real estate agents deals, mortgage brokers, loans, developers, developing tax base, but we're going to have to use the infill at this point unless we move over to District 3, I think Maureen's district, and start developing on some of the ground out in that area.
I believe growth is going to have to go where it wants to go within certain parameters. There's a lot of land available for growth that is used to be considered unworkable, and that's land along the foothills where we have lava cop. And that to me is the ideal place for it when we can. Of course, private property rights will dictate some of the lands along the periphery of the cities, and that has to be worked out with the cities in the sphere of influence patterns that the cities each work out. And so growth will happen. How fast it happens, anybody's guess. But people who specialize in growth know opportunity when they see it, and Butte County has some opportunity waiting to be tapped.
Mr. Wall, what about speaking of growth, what about the county's Green Line? Is it time to look at it and adjust it, or is it sacred and hands off?
Well, the Green Line has served its purpose. It's doing well, and I have heard of no great desire from anybody to change it. So until we hear something about that, then I'm content to leave it where it is. And if somebody does bring forward a change to it, we'll certainly look at it as a board.
Going to protect the Green Line. We do not need to be developing on properties or developing properties on agricultural ground that's irreplaceable. I've said that over and over again. It's part of my campaign. We're going to have to figure other stuff out. There's plenty of room to grow inside the sphere of influence. We can get hooked up to the city sewer. We've got to help developers want to develop. We can't ask them to come to us and beg us, how come I can't develop? We've got to offer some sort of incentive programs to get these people to boost the economy. What can the county do for you instead of, what can you do for us?
Okay, thank you. The first question from the audience, and we're just going to get to the issue of medical marijuana, recognizing that only one of you will win this race. However, both of you are running in a race where you will need to represent people who disagree with your positions regarding medical marijuana growing. So how will you effectively represent the interests of both sides? And we'll start with Mr. Merkel.
we developed an ordinance that helped the interests of both sides. After Measure A was completed and the opposing party didn't put up any sort of a fight over it, and the public voted 55 to 45, we formed an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee created an ordinance. The ordinance was great. It was working just fine. And what happened was we had some group come in and start to meddle with things. We could have come back after a portion of time and adjusted the ordinance a lot easier, but what we had was a lot of games going on, and we tried to represent both sides. I went to all the supervisors to represent both sides. Some people didn't want to talk about it or work on the issue, but the other supervisors were open to it. But it got a little bit out of hand in there with this group of people.
This group of people, as you call them, were residents of this county who were being infringed upon by people who were not respecting their rights, by people who were growing and causing bad smells near the harvest time, with guards, with water theft, with unauthorized grading, with poisons. Wait a minute.
No, he gets a full minute to answer the question himself.
Okay.
Reset.
So I'll continue. So these folks gathered together and came to the board and say, wait a minute, this is not working. We have these people out here growing marijuana that is impinging on our rights as private citizens, and we want to do something. So the board, in its wisdom, decided that they were right and that there was much too much pot being grown in Butte County, and the effect on the environment and on the neighbors was atrocious. So they gathered together and presented to the board some ideas for allowing a certain amount of growth of medical marijuana for those who really felt that they needed. But we wrote an ordinance that was quite restrictive, and that's the one that's going to be on the referendum this fall.
Okay, Mr. Little.
I want to go back to that question, even though it's not mine, because I didn't think I heard an answer to it. How will you represent the people with whom you disagree?
We need to create a regulatory system. This ordinance was developed to create a regulatory system, but what we had was the DA and the sheriff in there trying to support their own needs. I remember them running after every meeting over to Mr. Wall's office and them working together to screw everything up. This ordinance was developed to create a system at the Department of Health and Human Services that would have checked on each grower to make sure that they were a resident of the county and all the patients were residents. But they failed to do that for the public. It's your law enforcement that's failing you. And so if we would have had this implementation at the Department of Health and Human Services, we could have mitigated a lot of the grows that were coming in from out of the county, like the out-of-county growers or the people with guns or the dogs. I know a lot of people that have guns, dogs, and no marijuana. And so by developing that, the Health and Human Services, we would have known who was good and who was bad, and we could have shut them down.
Thank you, Mr. Merkel.
Thank you.
Mr. Wall.
The answer to the question, David, would be the fact that we are carving out a portion of the ordinance that will allow people to grow medical marijuana for their own personal use and those of their partners, roommates, spouses, as well as others who may have a valid 215 card. The biggest portion of that of that ordinance will be the control of vast amounts of pot for profit, which is the real problem here in Butte County. There is so much pot for profit being grown that there is violence, and it needs to be reined in. We don't want Butte County to be the pot capital of Northern California or of California, but we certainly, until this referendum passes, we certainly will be one of the most liberal, if you will, counties in California as far as growing pot. So we've left open something for everybody there.
Thank you. Mr. Gascoigne.
On another matter of some controversy, and I think I know how you feel about this, Mr. Wall, but I've noticed some T-shirts here about fracking, the practice of fracking, and I know that the county is in the process of banning it, and I would like to hear your take on it and how you feel about banning fracking.
Well, fracking, quite frankly, is not a dirty word. Fracking has been going on for 60 years around the country, the Dakotas, Montana, Southern California, Kern County, that area. What happened the other day was a small group of activists decided that they wanted to come to the county and ask us to severely restrict or ban fracking, which the board in its wisdom decided to do. However, it wasn't very well thought out because it was an emotional reaction to a small number of people in the audience. There was no expert testimony presented, no factual information presented, and it puts the ban on fracking, which we have directed our staff to come back to us with a potential ordinance. Now, we can still reverse that and change it to something like a special use permit, which I favor. You know, fracking in Butte County is an unlikely scenario, but it sends a message much like the nuclear-free zone does in Chico, where it's silly to ban something that
Ban
you don't know
fracking.
don't know a whole
Ban
lot about.
fracking.
Mr.
Look,
Marco, please, don't walk over other candidates. One of the things that we do request is that candidates be respectful of each other's time and not
his
walk on.
time was up.
Oh, I did not notice that. Was his time up? Okay, thank you. And then, okay, so my second admonition is to please make sure you pay attention to the ladies with the signage, and if the stop sign comes up, please stop speaking, conclude your comments.
Fracking needs to be banned. It's a bad practice. You're going to pump chemicals into the ground, into an aquifer that we all share, all the way up from Shasta Mountain. It runs down through Lassen, and the people in Glenn County are going to pollute our water because they're fracking over there. Look, Mr. Wall represents Ryan Shore. Ryan Shore has 9 gas wells on his property. What do you think Ryan Shore wants from Mr. Wall? He wants to pump the gas out of the ground and pump pollutants in it. Well, we all suffer. What's going to happen when he's gone? I'm going to have a huge water bill, and I'm going to hope that I can wash myself. Do not. We need to ban fracking now. We need to protect our water and not our friends over a couple dollars.
Thank you. Next question from the audience is, what kind of jobs or industry do you want to bring to Butte County? And we'll start with Mr. Merkel.
Well, we have a $400 million industry already operating in this county, which isn't going to stop. Prohibition hasn't stopped. We have a research zone that was developed in the new general plan. We can bring in doctors, researchers, farmers, growers, cultivators, dispensaries, other products and services. We're talking about a $1 billion industry here that's untaxed and unregulated. We have an opportunity. The people in the United States want our medicine here. We're one of the top producers in the country. We should be proud of it.
Let's be clear, this isn't all about medicine. It's about enormous profits from pot. 400 million or billion, whatever, industry. This is dirty money, and we don't need it here. It is against the law federally. It's against the law statewide to sell it. Someday that may change, and my suggestion to my opponent would be to go to the feds and lobby to change the law if he so desires. The kind of jobs we need here in Butte County are the kind that you get from high tech, from good, clean manufacturing, and we have a lot of folks who are interested in doing that. There are several companies that are working on that. We have Milestone, a call center out in Chico, and we have all metal fabricators and manufacturers. We have downrange. We have a number of different jobs that the Butte County Economic Development Department has worked hand in glove with other folks here in the local area to bring these jobs to Butte County and to expand the existing manufacturing and technological base.
Is there anything the county can or should be doing about prison realignment, AB 109?
Mr. Wall, you get to take that question first.
Yeah, I think we are doing everything humanly possible, and I got to compliment the Probation Department, the Sheriff's Department, Under Sheriff Corey Honey, and Sheriff Jerry Smith for taking a bad situation that was foisted upon us by the state and making the best of it. We have programs for probationers. We have programs for inmates. A real problem with the AB 109 is that it creates prisoners out of jailbirds. We have experts coming out of the prison system who are able to teach criminal behavior to the young folks that are in a county jail for minor offenses. And so it's very difficult, and the state has not given us enough money to do it right. We need more jail beds, and we need more jail space, and we need more sheriff's deputies. And I've asked that we add more deputies in this next budget to help compensate for
Time.
that
Thank
and
you,
for
Mr.
the.
Wall. Mr. Merkel.
Okay.
I suggest instead of putting people behind bars, we start focusing on public health. We have a lot of sick people out there that need to be represented. If we keep pouring money into jails, we're going to keep creating criminals. I mean, that's where they go. I mean, they make movies about it. We've all seen Shawshank Redemption. We can't keep doing the same thing. It's the definition of insanity that we're talking about here. Let's lock people up. Let's create a bigger jail. Let's give the sheriff more money. We're empowering them. We need to look at things from a different perspective. We can't keep doing things the same. This is what we're getting right here. Do you want the same thing? I don't want the same thing. That's why I'm here. I'm here to speak up for the people to say, let's do something different. Let's try something else. Let's think outside the box. Let's help these people. Let's not lock them up. Let's not create more court systems. This is a horrible, horrible situation.
This is for Mr. Merkel, I think. What are some of the major, we've touched on some, but some of the major issues facing this district, this supervisor district?
That we don't have enough jobs, and that people aren't paid enough, and they're paid low wages, and they're struggling, and the rich keep getting richer, and the poor keep getting poorer. We need to figure out how to up the average wage here from everybody being low income, somewhere around $30,000. We have to, if we're going to want people to spend more money, they're going to have to make more money. And we can't bring a call center in where people get $8 an hour. You know, that's all college kids. We need to create good jobs in the medical field, things that are bringing more science into our area. We have plenty of people, plenty of smart people here coming out of Chico State, plenty of smart people that live in this county. Again, we have to start thinking outside the box. The little stuff's not going to cover making more money to create better infrastructure inside of our district too.
One of the biggest problems we have here in District 2, and particularly in Chico, is the transient population, the ne'er-do-wells who occupy and frequent downtown. There is a combined effort between the sheriffs and the police department and the merchants and the residents of Chico to try to do something about that problem. It's not an easy problem because there are many problems with fixing the problem. Such as rights of people. We can't do anything to abrogate their rights, but we do need to provide them with services. Butte County has behavioral health. It has mental health and a number of programs that are available, but you can't force the people to go use those services. So I think that is one that we need to work on more, and that will take a coordination between Chico Police, Sheriff's Department. The other thing that I would focus on is stop.
Time. Thank you. This actually is a pretty good segue. This is from the audience. The Health and Human Service Agencies, Behavioral Health, Public Health, and Employment and Social Services make up 54% of the county budget. I'm hoping the number's right. How well are these departments operating, and what do you see are their challenges, and what would you do to improve their operations? And And we start with Mr. Wall.
Behavioral health and mental health services in Butte County is doing quite well. We have a number of things going on that are available. We have approximately 40,000 people in Butte County who are on Medi-Cal, and that's a large percentage of our county who is receiving that service. We offer it to all of those who need it. The Affordable Care Act is also something that Butte County has had to work with. Since that was passed and implemented here under Cover California last fall, we've had to hire 15 new people to help with that. They are doing well. The state has over 400,000 people waiting because the state system does not work. It does not interface with the county departments. And so Butte County has nearly 6,000 people waiting to get into the Medi-Cal system. Now that's unsatisfactory, but if you come in, walk in the door, you can get service. But if you sign up over the internet and have to wait, that's an unfortunate
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Mr. Merkel.
The new Covered California should offset some of the county money that we're spending on behavioral health right now. We just haven't seen the effect of Obamacare, or they call it Covered California. So we'll have a little bit more income theoretically to speak that we are waiting to see if that actually comes in, what the offsets are. But behavioral health, I'm noticing that the county at their last meeting gave the new director a $200,000 salary. I thought it was kind of overwhelming that one person's getting paid $200,000 and the people underneath them are getting paid like $30,000 or $40,000 to deal with the people that have the problem. We need to spread those salaries out and get more people in there and start giving one person so much money and maybe take a better look at the infrastructure of it.
Mr. Little, it's your turn.
All right, one more marijuana question. I'm sure you guys are tired of talking about it. And I'm sure voters are tired of hearing about it, so that's the question. After the November referendum, or 2 or 3 or whatever it is, does that end it for you? Will you implement the voters' will and let it die?
Who's that?
Starts with Merkel. Mr.
You know what? I will let it die, but I know that we're going to win because there was more people out there signing the petition than you guys could even imagine. We had more signatures than needed to qualify, but this guy over here and Candace went through and started getting rid of people's signatures. Look, it's overwhelming how many people approve of marijuana. We have like a 65% approval rating, so I'm not worried about losing the referendum. We're going to pass the initiative, and then Mr. Wall, if he's reelected, won't be able to mess around with it again, and then if they want to keep bringing it to the voters, they can keep bringing amendments to the voters.
Well, you have a lot of ifs there, and quite frankly, we are going to win, and the referendum will put back into place the more restrictive ordinance that was passed a couple of months ago, and I think there's overwhelming support in Butte County to do just that. There are folks out there who are ready and willing to work on that, and we're going to put pot to bed for good here in this county. And going back to the affordable care thing, the county doesn't spend the money for the Affordable Care Covered California. That is money that comes from the state. We merely administrate it as a unit of the state, so it doesn't come out of our general fund. But no, the referendum, it won't die, and whether his side wins or our side wins, it will continue to come back until Congress, and even maybe after that, until Congress decides which way to go with medical marijuana and pot.
Mr. Gascoigne.
This is for Mr. Wall. I'll begin with you. What do you make of Supervisor Bill Conley's midterm decision to run for assessor?
You're going to have to ask Bill Conley that question.
Have you talked with him about it?
No, he didn't ask me about it, didn't say anything to me about it. I find the whole thing somewhat amusing.
I talked to I talked to Bill about it. He's a nice guy. He's just tired of the riffraff at the county. He thinks that he can do a better job, and we might actually see him in the secondary runoff. I mean, we have, what, 5 or 6 people running for assessor? It's a lot of people, and you know it's a runoff between the best two, and he's a pretty well-known guy. He's a good guy. He's done hard work in his part of the district, his district, and we'll find out here in June, and then maybe in November.
Thank you. David, I hate to tell you this, but the marijuana questions are not over yet, because this is actually a very good follow-up to your question, and it comes from an audience member. There will be 2, so far, marijuana measures on the November ballot. Can you explain the differences between the 2? Which one do you support and why? 1 minute. And it goes to Mr. Merkel first, I think.
The referendum was, we got signatures, like 12,308 signatures, and it stopped the amendments to the ordinance. It was an amendment for how much square footage you could grow and a couple other things. And so that got stopped. And then the initiative is the ordinance that we have in place today that people are operating by. And what the ordinance says is that if it's passed by the people, that the Butte County Board of Supervisors, including me if I get elected, cannot adjust the ordinance without putting it to a vote of the people. That's going to stop this. We can't keep dealing with this at a county level. Call up LaMalfa and have them do something about it. That's where our problem stems from. He's right. I'd say the feds need to work on things a little bit better, but it's not going away here. We have rights in this
Thank you, Mr. Merkel.
If you need Mr. LaMalfa's phone number, I can provide it to him, to you, and you can call him yourself.
Website.
The referendum that's coming up, in which I hope everybody votes yes on, would restore the most restrictive ordinance that the county has passed in the last few years, where the maximum grow in any parcel could be 150 square feet. It would get rid of the pot-for-profit growers. The initiative, which I hope you vote no on, would keep the very high number of plants, 99 plants on certain acreages. 99 plants on certain acreages. So that means you can grow an awful lot of pot and sell an awful lot of it and pretend like you're providing medicine to somebody. It's a bad ordinance, and it needs to be replaced by a tougher ordinance, which a yes on referendum will produce.
David.
So we asked some people on Facebook today what they would like to ask you tonight, and one of the questions was, I would like to know what their thoughts are on the lack of wage increases and the huge increases in deductions from Butte County employees' pay, and what they propose to do about it.
Would you run that question by again?
Sure. I would like to know what their thoughts are on the lack of wage increases and the huge increases in deductions from Butte County employees' pay, and what they would like to do about it.
Well, we have, in fact, for some of the bargaining units already granted pay increases, with more increases coming in a couple of years. Not as much as everybody wants, obviously, but it's what we can afford with all the other responsibilities and obligations that we have in the county. So I think people recognize, most people recognize, and those bargaining units that have settled do agree that this is what Butte County can afford right now.
We need to create more income. I mean, it hasn't done anything. We need to create businesses that are creating revenue. If the county employees want higher pay, which they deserve, we need to create more revenue for the county. If we have only so much revenue coming in, We can't promise people more money than we have. We all know that. That was the downfall from 2008. We're coming out of 2008. We've got this huge prime opportunity in front of us, and it's called marijuana. And we can create revenue for the county, and then people can have a higher salary. We have money coming in. There's money. We've created a business. We're taxing it. If you tax the plants, you get about, $35 million the first year on the plant. So that's more money than he saved the entire time, if he did save any money. I think that we've cut services so much back that it looks like we're saving money, but our whole county's falling apart.
Thank you. So this is a very pressing question. The owner of the Sriracha hot sauce plant is looking for a new location for a second manufacturing plant. What can Butte County do to attract that plant and make sure we get those jobs? And we're starting with Andrew Merkel.
Well, there's a good zone to put that plant in. It's right over by the reclamation plant on Highway 99. I don't think anybody's going to complain about it over there. So I think we should draw them in. I was actually quite excited. It's too bad that they are shunning the plant down south, but that's due to the population increasing and coming in around that business. It's a stinky plant, and it's a good place to put it, but I think that it would do well over there.
If they haven't already found a place, we'll be giving them a call. I think we need to invite them up to have a look at Butte County and see what kinds of properties might suit their needs and what we can do to put them in those kinds of properties.
Oh, sorry. I went out of order. I apologize. It's been a long day.
Okay, I'll start with Mr. Wall. How do you, in your case, Mr. Merkel, how will you keep in contact with and communicate with your constituents?
Well, I keep in contact with them by making sure I'm available when they call my office. I get a lot of calls from my office, and I call people back. Many of them are surprised that a supervisor would actually call them back. People stop into the office. They're surprised when I stop to visit with them. If I'm not there, I do call them back. We have constituents out there and constituents all over Butte County who call my office because they would like something done. They have perhaps transients living in the creek bed below them. They have disputes with their neighbors. They have all kinds of things going on, generators, pot growing next to them. And they want some relief, and they want to enjoy their homes in peace and quiet. So they call my office, I call back, and if need be, I work through Development Services or other Butte County departments to help them solve their problem. Can't always solve the problem, but we do try, and we do focus on what their needs are. And that's the important thing about being a supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Mr. Merkel.
I'm going to reach out to them. Instead of waiting for them to call me, I'm going to call them. You got to get stuff done. You have to have ideas. You have to go out. And you're not elected to sit in your office. You're elected to do something. So reaching out to them and trying to facilitate groups of people to come together. So say we wanted to develop a new sewage treatment plant in the county of Butte. I'm going to have to reach out to people. I'm going to have to reach out to LAFCO. I'm going to have to reach out to city council members. I'm going to have to reach out to other people in the state. I'm not going to wait for them to call me. I'm going to call them. I'm going to be proactive at bringing something new to this county. I'm not waiting for them to call me. I'm calling them. Let's get something done. Let's do something. Let's create some revenue.
David, since I jumped the gun, you get the next question.
Mr. Merkel talked about the loss of services in the county. What specifically are the lost services you are most concerned about, each of you?
Public health. There's not enough. I mean, the cops pick people up, the transients. He picks the transients up, takes them down there. Sometimes they're locked in jail during the weekend, so we have to support them during the weekend until a medical doctor comes in to help these people. We need to have weekend services. We need to spread the budget around. We need to make people happy inside of the organization. But we can't just keep giving big pay salaries to people and thinking that they're going to get the job done. We need to spread it around and get these people the help that they need. So public health is definitely number one.
The services that I'm most often asked about is how come there's no sheriff out in my neighborhood at night? How come, you know, when I call for a fire person, it takes so long for them to get here? Those are the kind of services, because our primary job is the protection of the safety and the well-being of our residents, all of them, not just the ones in our district. So we need to concentrate on those things that protect public safety and their property and personal homes.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, Mr. Merkel.
Yes.
Oh, what steps or what can the county do in the midst of this current drought? Are there things that the county can do to survive this?
Actually, the question should be starting with Mr. Wall.
Oh, Mr. Wall, I'm sorry.
Would you run that by us again?
Yes. What steps can the county take to help us survive this ongoing drought? How much power does the county have?
Oh, the county doesn't have a whole lot to do with the amount of rainfall we get, obviously, but the things we can do is conserve. And the county is working on a conservation plan, and at a certain point it will become activated and implemented. The county is lobbying strongly for something like the Sites Reservoir. We are measuring ground wells. We are working with our regional partners in keeping up a united front against the theft of water from Southern California and the foolish notion of the twin tunnels to suck more water from up here, area of origin. Keeping our water available for us first is something that continues. It's a legal battle that has gone on for years and will continue for many years, I'm sure.
At this point, we don't have much control over surface water rights. We have farmers that have senior water rights, junior water rights. They've been sold off, given, taken, pushed around the state. So when it comes to our surface water, we're pretty much got our hands tied. You can't do anything as the county. That's federally controlled. What we can do is protect our groundwater. We have a lot of agriculture coming in, a lot of big businesses. People see it as an opportunity to suck our aquifer dry and produce a lot of nuts and rice and fruit, and it's not consumed here locally, and it's sent out of the area. Now, we do have to generate income, and farming and agriculture is not a bad thing, but we need to regulate these wells. The state is not stepping in on it. They're too afraid of the farmers. We cannot be afraid of these people. We have to protect our resources. It's not a right. Water under your ground is not a right. So it's not a mineral right. We can protect that, and we can start by monitoring agriculture and how much groundwater they're using.
So I've been given the signal it's time for the last question, and it will come from the audience. And we're going to go to the state of Jefferson. What is your opinion on the movement to split the state? And we are starting with Mr. Merkel.
I think it's great. It's an initiative. It's people working towards something different. We're having problems in the state of California where we're taking on debt for Southern California. People are frustrated, and this kind of thing breeds innovation. If it doesn't work, at least we learn from it. They've tried to split the state up a few years back. No harm in doing this. Go out, figure some new things out for our state, bring new ideas in. And the state of Jefferson is a great idea. The people are good people, and they just want to see a change in the state of California, and that's why they're doing it. So let's listen to them. We haven't listened to other people for so many years. Let's open our eyes and ears to new ideas. And people speaking to us 40 years ago, they were like, the hippies are crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. We're not polluting our ground, but new ideas. This is a new idea. Let's learn from it.
Mr. Wall.
California is broken, and I support the movement to create a new state, whether it's called Jefferson or something else, it doesn't matter to me. And I would support the County Board of Supervisors, in addition to having it agendized next month to discuss, would also sign on to the Declaration of Support. It costs nothing, it takes up no staff time, but it lets the supporters of Jefferson and the state of California know that we think things are not good up here, and we would like some help. So creating a 51st state would allow us to start over and get rid of some of the regulations, some of the problems that have been created by the state of California, and produce a state that favors business, that works for business, for jobs, and creates a lifestyle more attuned to what we really have here in Northern California, and not so much the Southern California. So there's a lot of pluses to it, and I support it.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Right before we go into the 2-minute closings, I'd just like to let the audience know if we did not get to your question, I'm sure the candidates will be happy to answer them for you during our brief break as we set up for the District 3 Supervisors race. So again, we will be starting with Mr. Wall for a 2-minute closing statement, and then Mr. Merkel.
We here in Butte County have a wonderful opportunity to continue what we've started over the past 4 years with fiscal accountability, with public safety, with the sheriffs and code enforcement officers doing their best to try to keep neighbors happy and safe and enjoy the quietude of their own homes. That's the unfortunate part about what we're going through now here in Butte County, is that the peace and quiet has taken a second fiddle to profits from pot, and that's just patently wrong and needs to be fixed. So that is what I will work on over the next 4 years, no matter how long it takes. I didn't come into this position expecting to spend so much time on marijuana, but I do support our efforts in controlling marijuana simply because of what it does to people, to the children in this county, and to folks all up and down this county who have to live with the results and the consequences of those who are not very good neighbors. You know, we do need jobs. We don't need these kinds of jobs. They're not working elsewhere. We just can't make anything out of that. We need good high-tech jobs. We're having a program working with the people at Chico State to bring back graduates from Chico State who have made success elsewhere and now would like to return to their homes here in Butte County. We have some examples of that. Prem Chand, who opened Milestone and has a couple hundred employees out at the airport, is a prime example of that. We need more of those, and there is, in fact, efforts going on through the county and the cities to bring back our graduates from Chico State who have gone on to be successful in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. And so those are the things we need to work on. Thank you very much for the opportunity tonight.
First, we need to finish the regulation on marijuana and develop something that creates revenue for the county. That'll bring us money. But we need to bring this county into the future. We can't do politics as usual here. My opponent, obviously, no matter if he wins or loses the referendum, is still going to be meddlesome with it. This has got to end. This good old boy network. We're going to clean out the county. We're going to make sure the sheriff does his job, and I'm going to call on these individuals. I'm going to call on the accountants to bring me the books and tell me what is the county bringing in. I'm going to call on the assessor and see what's going on in that office. I have a degree in organizational management. I've learned how this county worked over the last 3.5 years by dealing with Paul Hahn, Steve Lambert, Bill Conley, Maureen Kirk, tried to deal with Larry Wall. He does not have an open door policy, I can promise you that. I have an open door policy to make this county a better place. people who graduate Chico State are not coming back to this place. There's not good shopping. We need to offer more. You want high-tech companies to come to this place? The people who are in high-tech companies have wives and children, and they have to go out and they want to shop. They want to do different things. We're lacking a lot of the public needs, the want for good shopping and other stuff. Yes, we have natural resources where people like to go out hiking, but those people come and go. They're infrequent here in the county. So we need to work on that $400 million industry and get it regulated and start bringing revenue in and making the county employees happier and pumping it back into our public health system. No more pumping it into the sheriff and giving him more than $40 million a year. It's not working. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, you may now applaud. And we are going to take a 5-minute break as we reset for the next District 3 Supervisors race.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
We are going to start the 3rd Supervisor District Forum.
There was a question that came up during the break, where can you see the videos of tonight's forum and the previous 2 forums? You have to write this down. LWVButteCounty.org. That first thing is all one word, LWVButteCounty.org. And we have posted those videos on there for you to take a look at.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the Supervisor District 3 Candidate Forum. Our candidates this evening are Maureen Kirk and Bob Evans, and the format of this will be exactly the same. 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and at the coin toss, Ms. or Mrs.? So, Maureen Kirk will be going first. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having this forum, and thanks to the audience and the people that are engaged in the political process. I really appreciate that. I want to start my statement by saying I've served our community for over 19 years. I've 4 years on the Bidwell Park and Playground Commission, 8 years on the Chico City Council, and 7.5 years on the Board of Supervisors. My first priority is and always has been public safety, and to accomplish that requires a healthy budget. When I started in 2007, the county budget was structurally unbalanced. We took steps to rectify that by laying off about half of the Development Services Department, some from behavioral health and public health, and various other cuts. It was extremely hard on our employees who have sacrificed during the economic downturn. They deserve thanks since they have forgone raises and COLAs while we put our house in order. But we were proactive, and now the county has a balanced budget and a healthy reserve. Our Sheriff's Department is second to none and has worked diligently with the other departments in the county to deal with the state-mandated AB 109. We have a general plan which was vetted in over 100 community and board meetings. We have an economic development strategy which highlights Butte County as a desirable destination for new business. At the same time, we offer services to existing businesses to develop and grow. Our tourism strategy is unfolding with all 5 cities in the town of Paradise as partners. We have an increased voice regarding the water challenges and have been responsive to the various state plans. I've been on the first 5 commissions since I was first elected, and one of the standout accomplishments of is our mobile dental clinic, which we had partnered with Glenn and Tehama County to serve children 0 to 5. We've been able to expand our library services. My constituent services are second to none. I take pride in answering all of my calls, meeting my constituents.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Time's
I'm
up.
sorry, I didn't see that. It's hard to see when it's yellow and when it's red.
Mr. Evans.
Well, good evening, and I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for providing this forum and a chance to talk about what my priorities are. You know, we talk about this being a nonpartisan race, but I think we all realize that it is partisan. Maybe partisan's not the right word, but we all come with the background that provides us with the impetus for what we want to do for Butte County. In my case, I'm a Midwestern boy born in Ohio, and my parents had a great influence on my thought process. My education did too. I have a degree in economics from The Ohio State University. I have 2 master's degrees, including an MBA. I spent 20 years in the military, and that certainly influenced me and my thought process as it relates to healthy communities and my political views. And I've run one of Chico's largest businesses, Life Touch National School Studios, with a $24 million budget. Yes, and that also influenced how I think government should be run. Both Maureen and I are trying to do our best for this community. We're certainly not into it for the money, that's for sure. But those influences on me will color how I answer staff reports and decisions that come before the board. It's like looking through a lens. You know, and my lens says if it's good for jobs, it's something I'm in favor of. If it provides for safe communities, it'll be something I'm in favor of. If it provides for a healthy economy, that's something I'm in favor of. If it provides for property rights and our personal rights and protecting our heritage as a Northern California small town, that's something I'm in favor of. I guess that's all I'm in favor of right now.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Little, you have the first question.
So you do have a lot of similarities when it comes to especially experience, public service. What are the differences?
It goes first to Maureen Kirk.
Well, I've actually served a lot longer. Bob was appointed for 2 years on the city council. I actually ran and was elected 2 times. I've been elected twice to Butte County Board of Supervisors. He said he grew up in the military and he had this experience being in the Midwest. Well, I went to Catholic schools and I had the nuns for 12 years. You know, kind of similar to that. Wore uniforms also. So, you know, I think Bob and I actually have a lot in common as far as wanting the best for our county. I think, I think all of us do. We just have a different way to get there. I have been really focused in on the budget because I think that's, if you have a healthy budget, that's how you're going to, that's how you're going to have a healthy community. You're going to be able to offer more services. You're going to be able to have a safer community. You're going to be able to attract more jobs. So, thank you.
Well, service comes in more ways than public service on a council, and I applaud Maureen for her service. But I've been seeking ways to serve this community for the 25 years I've lived here. I've been on several boards. I've been on Rotary. I've been president of the Chico Rotary Club. I'm the next president of the Chico Community Scholarship Association. I've been a board member for 20-some years for Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs, which is a great event. So, and several others, the Chamber Executive Board, and then the City Council. So there's several ways to serve, and you know, I'm just not done serving yet. When you're in the military, you're never inside a community. You're always on the outside. And when I decided when I retired, I was going to plant deep roots, and I was going to spend my time giving back to the community. And that's what I've done ever since I've been in Chico in Butte County.
Thank you, Tom Gascoigne, and Mr. Evans will have an opportunity to answer first.
I brought this question up before, and it has to do with the Green Line, and I know it runs through that district that you are talking about. And there's been calls recently, within the last few years, to alter it, to move it. And I just wonder, do you agree with that, or do you think it's sacred and should be left in place, or just your thoughts on the Green Line?
Well, as the previous contestants attributed, the Green Line has done us a great favor and has prevented growth into that prime soil that there is limited amounts of in Butte County. And I have no problem with growing east versus to the west. Having said that, you know, the fear is that if we make a minor adjustment, that's just going to be the breakwater that opens the floodgates. I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think anybody on either side wants that to happen. It's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. If somebody comes up at the 5-year review and suggests a small change that makes sense economically and is bought off by both sides, I wouldn't object to that. But I am not in favor of any radical changes or elimination of the Green Line. It's been too valuable to our community.
I'm also a staunch supporter of the Green Line. I think it's one of the innovative things that happened in our county since 1984. We have other places to grow. In our general plan, we're set aside for 13,700 residential dwelling units. We've got a lot of other places to grow besides in the prime soil. We've got the North Chico specific plan, different from the Northwest Chico specific plan. With the North Chico, there's a lot of room to grow in North Chico, and frankly, the best place to grow is within the counties or the town of Paradise if they ever get a sewer and figure out how to grow. But the best place is to grow where the services are. So Green Line, yes.
Thank you. This one comes from the audience, and it has to do with fire safety. Cohasset has a one-way in and one-way out. It's the narrow, windy Cohasset Road, and then it ends in a dirt road that goes into a national forest. So how can the county move forward with a plan to provide and maintain a reliable way out, back way out, in case of a wildland fire in the area? Yes.
Well, that's interesting. I was just up in Cohasset at a community meeting last night, so I'm not sure who was there that asked that question. They are asking to explore the Ponderosa Way as a second exit. It goes from Cohasset all the way to Highway 32. And at one time, it was a fire. It was done by the CCC in the late 30s as a secondary fire route. And for a long time it was maintained by the federal government. Then actually CAL FIRE was maintaining it. And after some certainly budget cuts and all CAL FIRE just stopped maintaining it. Well, what's happened also is it's become in private lands, private ownership also. So I am exploring it with the county of the citizens of Cohasset to see if there's some way that we could have that as a secondary road. They say since Magalia got the Forest Highway 171, you know, why can't we get that too? So I don't know. There's lots of complications.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Well, I wasn't there last night, but I have talked to the residents of Cohasset about this issue also. And the problem is, the town of Cohasset is slowly being walled in by gates. It used to be there were lots of open roads, and today between the pot growers and others, there are gates and fences on many roads. And one of the biggest issues is Sierra Pacific Industries used to leave their roads open through their national forest, which did provide exit routes for Cohasset. They have since gated off all of their lands too, and I believe that's what the Ponderosa Road is. So any negotiations to improve that exit, it has to be dealt with Sierra Pacific, and certainly the county should be in a position to be able to do that.
You talked about prison realignment initially, just briefly in the opening statement, but what's working locally and what needs to be improved when it comes to AB 109 implementation?
Well, AB 109 was, you know, it's just a handoff from the state of something they didn't want to do or couldn't handle right. And as Larry said, Sheriff Honing has done a tremendous job. They have a program, where alternative work program, where they qualify certain prisoners to come out of the jail and work. For instance, they did the cleanup on the children's park in, thank you, Caper Acres. And they do other projects. They're training to do other projects. The good news is, in our county, the recidivism rate, I got that word out correct, is about 14% on AB 109 inmates, and for the statewide, it's 50%. So our county is doing much better than the state. We need a bigger jail. Because we have long-term prisoners. The other thing is, we have prisoners that are much more violent than they used to be. The 3 nons is kind.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Hello. How are you doing?
It's hard to see that, I have to say. For both of us, it's hard to see right there.
Carol, do this.
Yeah. It's hard to expound on what Bob says, but our sheriff and undersheriff had done a fabulous job with the mandate that state just threw at us with not enough money. They have programs, they have work training programs, they have computer skills that they're offering, they have literacy programs, they have drug and alcohol counseling, a lot of things that some of these prisoners really never had the opportunity to have before, and they're really grateful. And the recidivism rate is much less. It's being followed by 3 professors at Chico State are doing the studies on this. So it's an example of something that was thrust on us that we've made the best of it and have done an excellent job. But the problem is now that the people in jail are really much more violent. It's a different kind of I guess, transgressor than we've had in the jail before. You know, a lot of times you'd have these guys from downtown.
Okay, I guess this is for Mr. Evans. Okay, you're right. You just finished. We have an idea of how you feel about this, but I want to bring it up. The practice of fracking and the effort to ban it in the county, you voted to do so, so explain why, please. Well,
the more and more I've read about fracking, the more I think that it's really a bad idea to introduce into our county when our groundwater is so precious. My husband's a chemist, my son's a chemical engineer, and actually I read through some of their journals, and the things that their petroleum industry is looking for, the fracking industry, is chemists that can figure out how to change the formula of chemicals that they put into the ground, because they also need chemists or engineers to figure out what to do with what they've left there and how to clean it up. They don't have all the answers now, and the more and more you read, there are communities where the groundwater is being compromised, where there's earthquakes now in places that they never had earthquakes, and there's just too many unknowns about it. If things are cleaned up, I might look at it again, but I think it's a great idea for our county to ban fracking at the moment, and I support it totally, the ban.
You know, first of all, I agree with Maureen. We need to protect our water, and we need to know a lot more about fracking. I don't trust the oil companies that give us the whole truth that everything's safe. I don't trust the people who say that people are dying all over the place, that's true either. We just need to know a lot more about fracking. What bothers me is there isn't going to be any fracking in Butte County. We have no shale, and fracking is done in shale. So why are we passing a ban on fracking when there is no purpose? It's really just a political statement that that doesn't need to be made at this time. Now, if somebody does want to experiment with fracking, we need to obviously investigate that thoroughly. It's too early to ban it. 10 years from now, it could be safe. It could be a money generator. Again, it's not going to happen in Butte County, so it's not an issue that should be before the board.
Thank you. This question comes from the audience. The question has to do with taking a political risk. And when did you choose to do something, take a political stance on something that may have put you at risk politically, but you did not consider a political impact? And how has that influenced your decision-making afterwards?
I had a little bit of a hard time understanding what you said.
Well, it's just, at what point, when did you choose? There's two questions along this topic, so I'm trying to merge them together. One is, when did you choose to do the right thing that may have put you at risk politically? And the second is, name an occasion when you led the charge on an issue without considering a political impact. So there was an issue that came before you, you took a stance, and maybe it had some kind of lasting influence on how you make decisions, political decisions.
I think I'm first.
And we start with Mr. Evans, yes.
Gee, thanks, Maureen. I appreciate that. Actually, I do have a good example. I'm glad you said it twice, though, because it took me a second to think of this. Back when I was on the city council and I was in the city council's debts were rising, and the audience or the taxpayers were being convinced that everything was in the black and everything was okay. I decided that if I couldn't influence the council, I would at least notify the public of what was going on, and I did. I advertised in both papers, the ER and the News and Review. I took out ads talking to where the council was millions of dollars in debt, excuse me, the city of Chico was millions of dollars in debt, and that it wasn't being well known. Did that affect my political career? Absolutely. It was not a good campaign strategy, for sure. People didn't want to hear the bad news, and but I felt it was the right thing to do. I felt that was my responsibility as a council person to inform people of what was really going on within the city of Chico.
Thank you. Ms. Kirk.
I can't think of too many. I go back to something that was really most controversial of my whole life was on the Bidwell Park and Playground Commission. I was chair, and a wildlife expert came and said, you really should not have those deer in the deer pen. And I remember, so we voted to move them, and you would have thought it was the end of the world in Chico. I mean, and I didn't sleep for days, and I can't say that I was really, came out in force and, wanted to do that, but it was a decision that I thought we would have gone with the experts, and that was not liked. And then the other thing is I did lead the charge in putting a water element in the general plan, and that was, not met with a lot of glee by certainly by the planners and some of the other people on the board, because they just didn't think we necessarily needed that.
Thank you.
But I think we did.
That was a good question, whoever asked it. I'm sure when you campaign, you talk to all kinds of people about all kinds of issues, but what is the number one issue that people want to talk to you about in this campaign, and what are you going to do about it?
Is it me? Oh, I hate to bring it up, but marijuana, a lot of people want to talk about that, and they want to talk about the referendum, they want to talk about the ordinance, and they want to talk about what we're going to do about it. And so that's one thing. Public safety, it's interesting that people that are impacted feel it very strongly that we need more public safety. And in my rural areas, we do have a designated deputy, but he's only there really 10 hours a week, so it's not enough, and they would certainly like that more. So I have talked to my communities of Forest Ranch and Cohasset. People are really, really, really worried about water and want to know if the county's going to do something. And I think, actually, all in all, if you really probably did a poll, that would probably be the biggest threat, because it threatens the economics of our county, certainly the ag sector, which is our biggest driver. So I'd say water is probably number one.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Well, I think Maureen covered the big three, probably. Marijuana certainly is voiced to me also as I do my walking around. Water and the coming fight, the tunnels, the coming fight for our water rights here in Northern California, public safety, especially in Cohasset and Forest Ranch. And another one that as I got to know the farm community, their big concern, it lies 90 miles south of us, and that's Sacramento, and all the regulations coming out of Sacramento that are impacting our lives every day, that are restricting what they can do to earn a profit, that are affecting our heritage. The farmers and other people, business people, are concerned about this, should I use the word, tsunami of regulations coming out of Sacramento.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, this is for Mr. Evans. Well, it's been brought up, as was inevitable, but how should the county deal with medical marijuana? What should be done at this point?
Well, personally, I think the county's on the right track with their latest ordinance. I did a ride-along up through Cohasset, and those people are very nervous and very, very afraid of some of their neighbors. And I've been to board meetings, and I've heard that testimony over and over and over again. One of the comments that the deputy sheriff who took me for a ride along made, it really hit home. He said, we are losing an entire generation of our youth to marijuana. And it is as prevalent in high schools today as cigarettes were in my generation, which means they think nothing of going into the classroom stoned, and once they get on that path, it's hard for them to break. The thing we haven't heard from is the medical community, and I actually looked up the American Lung Association. I'll cut my next answer short. I want to read this real quick. Marijuana smoke contains a greater amount of carcinogens than tobacco smoke. In addition, marijuana users usually inhale more deeply and hold their breath longer than tobacco smokers do, further increasing lung exposure to carcinogen smoke. And it goes on. But why do we want to spread it, legalize it, even encourage it?
Thank you,
Is
Mr.
beyond
Evans.
me.
Do you need to cut that short? Sorry.
Well, we need to live with Proposition 215. We've tried 3 different ways where we tried sort of a moderate amount of grow that we allowed, and that was referendum. Then we did the committee, and we actually expanded so that there was, at the most, 99 plants over 40 acres, thinking maybe that that would work. There was too much impact on the neighbors, and it just didn't work out. So then we went to a more strict ordinance, and certainly we have the referendum again. I am hoping that certainly the initiative does not pass, and that's the one that takes the power away from the Board of Supervisors. Not that I love dealing with marijuana, but I think we could do it one more time. I'm hoping with the neighbors and the medical marijuana advocates, something that we could find in between. Frankly, the state needs to set in and come in and make some regulations that are fit for all of us.
Thank you. And Tom, thank you for asking the question, so I don't have to. One of the question came in earlier that I wasn't able to get to, but I think it really applies to this race as well, is how do you feel about the importance of honesty, transparency, and accountability in government? And it goes to Ms. Kirk first.
Honesty and transparency. What was the last word you said?
Accountability.
Oh, accountability. Well, I think everybody should be honest and accountable and transparent. I guess I'm not sure what that question is driving at. I've always been forthright in what I believe in, and I think the county does a great job. We have more access to our records and our agendas and our meetings, and you can watch those online. You can watch the meetings online easily. Between I think the assessor's office and the auditor's office, I'm actually on the audit committee and the treasury oversight committee. I think they make their numbers very well known to the community. So I think that's a good thing, and I can't imagine being against it. And I'm all for honesty, transparency, and
Actually, this one hits me right in the wheelhouse. I'm a huge advocate for honesty and transparency, as evidenced by my time on the council and my exposure to the hiding of facts from the public that should be made public. And I would continue that tradition at the county. And I'll give you a specific example of something that's gone at the county that I've testified against, and that's the ag mitigation ordinance. The ag mitigation ordinance was sold as a ordinance that protects prime soil for farming and farming production. And that's the way it went through staff, and that's the way it was sold to the public. But in reality, it did that by charging huge mitigation fees to developers and other people who want to build houses on it. But what it did do, it gave a free pass to environmental groups who took thousands and thousands of acres of prime farmland and turned it into habitat restoration areas, took it off the tax rolls, took it away from farming. So it was a deceptive rule, and I helped expose
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Little.
So I think the only thing the previous two candidates agreed upon was that medical marijuana needs to be decided at the state or federal level. And I think you both have just already said that too. And you talk about this storm cloud 90 miles away. It's only 90 miles away. So why aren't county supervisors and city officials down there telling Sacramento what needs to be done? I can't quite fathom that. So maybe you could address what you would do or what you are doing as a supervisor to make the folks in Sacramento and Washington listen to you.
We are. Actually, I'm the...
It actually goes to Mr. Evans first.
I'm sorry.
Well, you just kind of hit my closing argument with that one. I think the job of the supervisor is changing. The job of the supervisor has to become more obviously do all the things we do down to the citizens within the county, and the county government has to be up also and team with our local legislators to protect Butte County from Sacramento. Last year, Governor Brown signed over 800 bills. This year, there's 1,790 bills going through the legislature. Not 10% of them are favorable to rural counties like Butte County. So we need to tag team, and that supervisors need to help. I've done that. I'm a board member for the Alliance for California Business. I've testified against CARB twice, and we're in a lawsuit against CARB. And we're making progress. I think that's the only way we can back off some of these inane job-killing regulations that are coming out of Sacramento.
And I will also say that we are doing that. I'm the representative for the county for the California State Association of Counties, and we have a strong position that we would like some kind of regulation on medical marijuana. On BCAG, which is the Butte County Association of Governments with the 5 supervisors in the 4 cities in the town, we have really protested the CARB regulations because they just do not fit Butte County. Butte County does not have the same kind of air quality problems like they do in the Central Valley and farther south, and they're trying to fit us up together with a regulation that is just not suitable. We did get some changes. We actually did get them to back off a little bit, and there's more to go, but we've actually worked. And then our county supervisors, 2 of them usually go with BCAG to Washington, D.C. to lobby for money for roads and projects that we need to have done that otherwise there's no way that we could get them fixed. So we are active, actually more active than you would think.
Okay, for Ms. Kirk, you had mentioned the water element, and which brings up the question, what can the county do to survive the drought?
Well, you know, we have a really pretty robust groundwater monitoring system. Right now, we have Chapter 33, which means you can't pump groundwater and sell surface water. We don't want to really put any regulations on and what can happen with our water, but we're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to look at what some of the other counties are doing. Is crops have been turned into nut-producing crops, almonds, walnuts, that take a lot more water. before they had row crops, didn't take as much water. In some counties, they're starting to regulate the change in crops. I don't know that we will, and I hope we never do, but there's going to be some strategies that we're going to have to think of if the groundwater table goes down much more. It's gone down quite a bit in Durham and Vina and the city of Chico, and it's a big concern. We are having a water forum on the 22nd of May to talk about the latest numbers.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Well, the fight for water is going to be, it's going to dwarf everything else, in my opinion. Unless we have an La Nina or El Nino next year, I think the fight for water is just going to be dramatic. The state's going to want to take more of our water, and we need to be prepared to stand up and defend our water rights. As I said earlier, we need to conserve. I think from what I've seen from the farmers I know, they're doing a great job of conserving. But yes, nut crops do take more water. They need year-round nourishment. I lost my train of thought here for half a second. I only have half a second. The wells, you know, the county has done a good job. Glenn County does allow surface water to be sold and groundwater pumped to replace it. And Butte County's done a good job of not allowing that. But the state, once again, is the big dog in the fight, and we need to be prepared to stand up to efforts to take our water.
Thank you. I asked this of the previous candidates. It is my turn, right? Okay, just checking. Don't want to jump the line again. And that has to do with the Sriracha hot sauce plant. How do we get it? And it goes to Mr. Evans first.
I actually thought Andrew's answer was pretty good. You know, we set it right next to the reclamation, the plant, and they can cancel each other's odors out. I think that's good. You know, the county needs to reach out for companies like this, and not just that company, but there's several companies that need to relocate, are looking for places in Northern California because that's where their customer base is, and we need to reach out. I think Jennifer is doing, the Economic Development Coordinator is doing a good job. We have a great website at the county, but the one thing we aren't doing is actually going to conventions. We aren't going to, let's say, manufacturing conventions in Chicago and other places to represent Butte County, and that's an area where we can attract businesses. The city of Chico talked about doing that. I think the county needs to do that as well.
You know, actually, the Oroville Economic Development Corporation has already actually reached out and solicited Sriracha. So there is some progress there. And, you know, economic development success in the cities or benefits the counties, because the cities are all in the county. So if they could get them to move up there, that'd be great. There's a lot of property in the Highway 70 Industrial Park I think would be appropriate too. I hadn't thought about the one next to the rendering plant. That's interesting. We could certainly find a place for Sriracha. Apparently there's only really about 4 to 6 people that are really raising the ruckus there, which is kind of interesting because it's mostly in an industrial park, but I think we could make it work, and I know we would be fighting with Texas and all kinds of other states that are trying it, but I think Bob had a good idea about going to conventions, though, and we used to do that, and I remember when I was in the city there was a little bit of that done, then budgets got so tight.
David.
So we had a question on our Facebook page about the lack of wage increases for county employees and higher deductions for county employees, and they wanted to know what you propose to do about that.
Well, I agree. It's really tough on the employees, and as I said in my opening, I really appreciate that they've had to sacrifice because our budget was really out of balance. We are giving them a 2%, well, most of the bargaining units, 2% raise this year, 2% next year. We are imposing that they have to pay for their own PERS, which is their retirement. We did take that. We went 2% one year, 2% another year, 3% another year. So we have phased that in. I'm hoping with the economic upturn that we could actually do more to give the employees raises, because they really deserve them. They haven't had raises or COLAs, and the only ones that have raises are the ones that have step raises, and you know, a lot of people have topped out on their step raises. So it is a problem. I admit it totally, and I really would like to do something about it because a happy Butte County employees are happy. It's better for all of us. So they've sacrificed a lot.
There you go. I concur with Maureen on this. You know, the debate always is, do you give your current employees a raise, or do you increase staffing in areas where staffing has been cut? Both of those help the employees, and it's a give and take situation. Certainly, we need to increase the deputy sheriff's staff, that they're understaffed, but they're looking for a raise. To the extent you can do both, you do. And the county employees have been much more amenable to the situation than the city of Chico employees have. And therefore, the county's in much better shape than the city. So I agree, they deserve a raise. They're underpaid compared to the city. And as soon as the county can afford to do that and increase staffing, that should be a pretty high priority.
Okay, for Mr. Evans. You've been in office before. How do you stay in touch and communicate with your constituents?
It's not too hard. They get hold of me all the time. I actually have, on all my literature and handouts, it has my personal cell phone. And I used my personal cell phone when I was on the city council. So I usually don't know if it's a call from a constituent or if it's a call from a friend. So I pick it up independent of that, and I've always done that. I will continue to do that. I don't need a separate cell phone for county calls than my personal phone. I've always had an open door policy. When you're with the county, you're going to have, I'd have an office and an office staff, and it'd be, by the way, it's right around the corner from my house, so it'd be very convenient for me to be in there during office hours and answer calls. And you do the reach out that you do the community events like in Cohasset and Forest Ranch, because they have unique problems that the city of Chico residents don't.
Same for me. I've put out my home phone number, and I'm happily take calls, and I get a lot of calls. I'm in the office every day. When I'm not in a meeting, I'm in the office, and I always return my calls. I've spent a lot of time actually in Cohasset and Forest Ranch. My predecessor didn't like to drive very much, so she didn't get up there as much, and they appreciate that. I also make it a point to go to as many community events as I can, because people always want to stop you and talk to you at a community event about something good, something bad, whatever. I remember when I was on the city council, my son finally decided he didn't want to go grocery shopping with me anymore because grocery shopping took too long, because that's where people stop you. So I think I'm approachable, and I hope I am, because just wherever you see people, you want them to come up to you and tell you a problem. And sometimes if it's really complicated, I'll tell them to, email it or write it down or something, because I can't quite catch it in, a passing fancy, but I'm always available on my... Thank you,
Maureen. Okay, due to time constraints, this is going to be the last audience question, and then we're going to go into the 2-minute closing statements. Just to let the audience know, our next forum race for this evening is a judicial election, and I would encourage everyone to stay for that. It's not very often we actually have a contested judicial seat in Butte County. So the final question is the same final question asked last time, is would you support a declaration to join the state of Jefferson? And if, why or why not?
And which one of us?
It goes to you first, Ms. Garg.
Okay. Well, I frankly have to say I don't really support the state of Jefferson. I support the idea that we are underrepresented. I support the idea that it's frustrating for the North State that we kind of have a small voice. And when I've heard the argument, Los Angeles has 35 assembly people and we have like 2. So I understand that, but I think it's not practical. I don't think the economic economics of it add up. I think, I don't know what they'd do with Chico State, or, if that would be absorbed in the state of Jefferson, we'd have to buy it. I mean, it's so many complicated things that I just don't think it's viable, and the main reason I don't think it's viable is I don't think the Congress would vote for it. We need to have votes in the affirmative vote in the Congress to form a new state. I just don't think it's worth it. We are doing a hearing in June, and I'll be happy to listen, and maybe I could change my mind.
Well, actually, the state of Jefferson it's really born out of frustration with what's happening in Sacramento. And it's not a Democratic-Republican issue. It's really a urban-rural issue. And California's not the only state. Colorado's doing the same thing, where Denver rules the roost. Louisiana is also talking about a separation of part of their state. So this is really a movement about urban communities dictating rules for rural counties. Do I support it? Do I think it'll happen? It probably won't happen. Do I support it? Yes. Why? Because maybe if enough counties go together and make this happen, it'll be the only way I can think of that we can get Sacramento's attention. Maybe we can embarrass them to the point where they say, you know what, we need to pay attention in the north counties. I can think of no other way to get their attention than to have a united front in Northern California vote for the state of Jefferson.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move into the 2-minute closing. Ms. Kirk, you'll be going first, and then Mr. Evans.
For some reason, I can't hear your microphone. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, Butte County has a structurally balanced budget and a healthy reserve. This is important because public safety, county services, and economic development are all intertwined and depend on a sound budget. When a community is perceived as safe, it makes it more attractive to newly locating businesses. Our Sheriff's Department is innovative. They have faced the challenge of AB 109 and have shown success in preventing recidivism. There's a strong crisis intervention team led by Captain Andy Duke, which trains law enforcement throughout the county on how to deal with mentally unstable citizens. There is an increased communication with the public and a new reverse 911 system which will work with cell phones. Our agricultural sector is the economic driver in our county. I have made it a priority to work with the Farm Bureau on county-related issues. We now have a nut theft ordinance, which is in the process of being adopted by other counties because it has worked. I've been vocal in my concern that some of the air quality mandates do not fit our county and are harming our ag and trucking businesses. We are taking steps to protect our water and environment from the ravages of irresponsible marijuana grows. So we do have things in place. We can still regulate that. We have a robust groundwater monitoring program and are taking steps to make sure that our groundwater is not compromised. We're vocal in the state that we will not allow them to take our water. I've been endorsed by Butte County Farm Bureau, Sheriff Jerry Smith, and Under Sheriff Corey Honey because they know I'm looking out for the best of Butte County. I'm proud of how well I've worked with other members of the Board of Supervisors. Our board is cohesive with one goal, and that is to make decisions which influence our citizens in a positive way. I have been a big part of that, and I have also been chair for the last vice chair for the last 2 years. I'd also like to mention that it's nice to have one woman on the board, because sometimes a woman has a different point of view. So I would appreciate your vote and ask people to look at MaureenKirk.com. Thank you.
You had to play the women card, didn't you? Well, as I stated earlier, I've already covered some of my closing remarks in earlier comments, but bear with me, I'll repeat some of them. I do believe the job of supervisor is changing and has to change. I do believe that we need to do more than just look inside the county for protection and the best interest of our constituents. As we look in, you can count on me to be an advocate for personal rights, be an advocate for property rights, be an advocate for efficient and effective government, be an advocate for honest and open and transparent government, be an advocate for our our heritage, our small town, our rural heritage, our values that we want to raise our children by, and be an advocate for protecting our most vulnerable, less fortunate citizens. The flip side of that is we need to look up to Sacramento, and we need to be much more aggressive in our stances as it relates to what Sacramento is doing to Butte County. As I said earlier, 800 bills last year, 1,790 bills this year, most of them not favorable. I'll give you a couple examples of what are happening to the farm community. The ag mitigation ordinance I already talked to. There's a habitat conservation plan that says it will take 90,000 acres out of production for habitat restoration. There is the Feather River levee flood control plan that talks about another 40,000 acres coming out of rice or out of production. And the latest is a plan by the Department of Water Resources that will impact 310,000 acres of prime farmland. That's what the state is doing, and those are efforts that we need to push back and push back hard on. And I will do that. I will stand up and fight for Butte County. Thank you.
Thank you, both the candidates. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And as I said, our next race is for the Superior Court judicial race. Our two candidates are Sandra McLean and Eric Ortner, and I do encourage you to stay. Just one caveat, when asking questions of our judicial candidates, ethics prohibits the candidates from commenting on any cases that have appeared before the court or may appear before the court. So thank you. We're going to take a few minutes to reset, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If any of you have questions to ask the candidates, please make sure you receive a card. We have a table right there in the back. Stephanie Gilbert is sitting there, and she can hand out cards if you're interested. Also, when you're finished filling it out, just hold it up in the air, and either Linda or Stephanie will come and get it from you. This is going to be the same format, a 2-minute opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, 2-minute closing statement. And our candidates, again, are Sandra McLean and Eric Ortner. Again, by decision of coin toss, Mr. Ortner will be making the first opening statement.
This is, with me, you get a really good bargain this evening, a 2-for-1, so to speak. You see, as far as my nameplate, that it says Rick, and it also says Eric. And many people are confused by that. I'm the one, I'm both, and so it's Eric and Rick. I've been in Northern California for most of my life. My children have gone to school. I've gone to school in Northern California, Sonoma and Napa counties. My children have been, one of them was born here, and both of them raised here, and have gone to local schools. My oldest graduated from UC Davis, my youngest from local high school, and is now working at Milestone. I've been practicing for 32 years. It has covered a wide range in terms of areas of practice. It has included juvenile law, family law, bankruptcy, and criminal defense. I have been a member of a group of attorneys who have handled criminal cases. That has included felony cases as well as many misdemeanor cases. I have experience in terms of jury trials and regular, and this is weekly appearances in terms of criminal calendars. So what I bring to this position that I'm running for as far as office is I bring experience and I bring knowledge. And that experience and knowledge comes from the wide variety and background as far as cases that I have handled, both on a court-appointed as well as retained basis as an attorney.
I'm not used to this. My microphone in my courtroom is always on, so. In over 8 years on the bench, I have earned a reputation of being tough, fair, and honest, the characteristics that Butte County wants to see in a judge. I have extensive experience presiding over diverse cases, including those of our most serious felons and our most serious crimes. I have given second chances to those who have earned it and given appropriate prison terms to those convicted of violent felonies, while at the same time being concerned about the victims of these crimes. I also preside over civil and probate cases, always with fairness and justice as my guide. After graduating from Pleasant Valley High School and Cornell University, I joined the U.S. Army and served as a nurse, rising to the rank of captain. I went to Georgetown University Law School after my military service. I practiced law for 25 years prior to being appointed to the bench in 2005. I practiced a variety of areas of law, real estate, healthcare, and family law. I was a certified specialist and a fellow in family law. Every day I go to work, it's my aim to make Butte County a safer place.
So we hear a lot about a budget crisis facing the courts. Is it getting better or worse? And what initiatives or ideas would you pursue from the bench to help alleviate matters?
Mr. Ortner, the question first goes to you.
Well, as with all branches in terms of state government, I think that there is a budget crisis. It's my understanding as far as the County of Butte that the chief administrative officer for the court has been very prudent in terms of management as far as funds, and so I think Butte County, as a result of that, stands in a better position than anyone. The extent to which there's control as far as a judicial officer as it relates to that, I think, is somewhat limited. That would be, I believe, decisions that are made between the presiding judge and then court administration as far as how budget matters are handled or dealt with.
Today, the governor released his May revise and gave more money to the courts, which is a big help, given that it will allow the courts to have about the same amount of money that they did last year, rather than being restricted to yet another smaller budget. Our court has taken a very proactive approach over the last few years in revisiting every contract that the court has had and trying to renegotiate those contracts, looking at everything we purchase, everything that we spend our money on, and trying to appropriately deal with those. The judges and administration work very closely together on those issues.
For Judge McLean, what needs to be improved in the Butte County Superior Court system? I know we've got a new courthouse about to be opened. Are there other things with it that need attention, that need improvement?
There are. Just this year, we started with some revisions of how we run the criminal calendars and how we run some of our other calendars, including the civil calendar that I sit on currently, to try and make things more efficient. We needed more clerks. We didn't have the money to do that. We finally were able to hire some new clerks. We hadn't hired new clerks in about 4 years. So it was slowing down the process of getting paperwork to files, getting files into court. I'm not used to this. It's very disconcerting. But I think that with everybody pulling together, we're going to get there. And we continue to evaluate what needs to happen that we can do better.
I am part of a very heavy caseload, court appointed as far as cases. I'm also part of a very heavy trial calendar. And unfortunately, I think for the County of Butte, lost one of the best individuals that helped us as far as management. And so in terms of improvement, I would say somebody to step into some very large shoes that were left when Judge Stephen Howell retired and has basically moved out of state. His skills were in mediation, I think both on a civil calendar and in which he had attorneys trained through Pepperdine University that had a course and offered it as far as mediation. I believe that that's helped as far as the civil calendar, and I can certainly assure you that his skills as far as management as to the criminal calendars was large, and it helped as far as management. And so the improvement would be, I would say, ongoing in terms of trying to keep those trends or what he did as far as management in place.
1 minute does go fast. Is it my turn? Okay. This goes to ethical conduct, and it is a hypothetical, but it's nothing before the court at the moment. So if you were to become aware of unethical conduct on the part of a trial advocate in a case in which you are presiding, what is the appropriate way to handle it, and are judges in California required to report any attorney misconduct? And it starts with Mr. Ortner.
Well, we're all covered by the State Bar, which is very active and involved in terms of the practice. And there are certain reporting requirements that are required with regard to the State Bar, and that would, in the event of a ethical lapse, require a reporting to the State Bar. I was involved in a case in which an attorney supposedly made a ill-advised comment to a witness that ultimately ended up with, who also happened to be a good friend of mine as far as an attorney and a very qualified attorney, ended up with his having some problems with the State Bar. And that was, Judge Kelly was the trial judge in that particular case, and unfortunately that was the end result. So I think it's pretty clear in terms of what the obligation is.
In judicial ethics, a judge is required to report unethical conduct of both another judge to the California Judicial Performance Commission and of an attorney to the State Bar. Initially, if remediation can occur to correct a minor error, there are a number of ways that you can address it by talking to the attorney and suggesting that perhaps a different way of handling the matter would be advised. If it's another judge, to go and talk with that judge, talk with their supervising judge or the presiding judge.
As Eleanor said earlier, judges' races, judicial races are extremely rare, and I don't think, met a judge or an attorney who liked to run for this office. I assume you're both in the same boat. So I'm interested in hearing why you chose to challenge, why you chose to run for this office.
I don't know whose turn it is, but I think that question is directed at me.
It actually starts with Ms. McLean.
Okay. I'm running because I'd like to keep my job. I've done a good job in the county as a judge for the last over 8 years. I was initially appointed and was reelected once without an opponent. It is difficult to run as a judge because the skill sets of being a politician and being a judicial officer are very different. So from 8 to 5, I'm a judge. After 5, I'm a politician during this election. And they're very different behaviors. If I want to keep my job, I have no choice but to run since Mr. Ortner chose to challenge me. But I want to continue to serve my community, and that was why I wanted to become a judge in the first place. I want to continue to keep Butte County a safe place for us all to live and work, raise our kids, and have our businesses and retire.
Butte County has been where I've spent my entire professional career, and it's provided a lot to me. It's provided the stability in terms of employment and job. It's provided me with clients such that I could raise a family here and see my kids successfully graduate and go to college. I have a granddaughter that is now starting elementary school, and I want to see her also have what my children had. This is my opportunity in terms of this point in my career to return something that this community has given to me in an abundant share as far as benefit, as far as practice, clients, and a good environment in which to live. And so that is my reason in terms of this stage in my career, stepping forward, trying to return something in terms of the community that's given me so much.
Okay, I believe this is for Mr. Ortner. Okay. This is concerning someone who's been in the court system for quite a long time in Butte County. I'd like to get your general assessment of District Attorney Mike Ramsey.
A loaded question.
Can I interrupt a moment and maybe save both of us some... as judicial candidates and as a judicial officer, we can't endorse or comment on another individual running for office, so I'm not sure that that should be a question that we should be asked at this point, because he's running as well. He's still on the ballot. There could be somebody that writes in. Yeah. We can't endorse or comment on a race.
Okay, I was just wondering because, like, he's been a fixture for so long in the county as a DA.
I understand.
So,
yeah. It's just...
Are you asking me about my personal relationship with Mr. Ramsey?
Oh, just a general observation of how well he does his job, and you know.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't think that they can do that.
Okay.
Ethically.
Well, they probably can't do this one either, and that is you're both sort of in the same business, and to assess each other and how well you know each other. Is that illegal?
I think that's trickier for Judge McLean.
Okay. All right.
Would you like my list?
No. I've got something else here. And that is...
Who is it that's running? She seems to be acting in a judicial capacity.
She's the judge of this forum tonight.
Moderator of the forum.
Okay. Do you encourage out-of-court mediation and other alternative methods of settling cases outside of the courtroom?
I think that's true.
And yes, sir, Mr. Ortner.
Yeah.
And my answer to that is absolutely. I think that if the parties can sit down, and work together, they are going to be much happier in the end in terms of the end result. And I would say that applies across the board in terms of dealing with deputy district attorneys, which is what I do. It would apply in terms of family law cases in which Judge McLean had a specialty. If the parties can do that, and again, that's where I hearken back as far as Judge Howell, is that he was able to bring parties together and generate some discussion that ultimately ended up, and I think, generally with individuals being happy with the result of the outcome. So I say emphatically yes.
I concur. Every single day that I'm at court, I'm encouraging people to try to utilize alternative resources to settle their cases, whether it's an outside arbitrator, outside mediator, whether it's our, in civil cases, our mandatory settlement conference program with another judge. All of our judges, except I think the two newest, have been through the mediation training that is about a 15-day training. And so we all participate in trying to help resolve cases short of trial, and it works. I would say that 95% or greater of our cases settle without going to trial, whether it's a court trial or a jury trial, which saves our county money, which saves our court money, and is only a benefit to those people who are engaged in resolving their own issue.
Thank you. This comes from the audience. And with many members of our local military returning to civilian life, what legal programs or assistance would you propose to help these veterans to, either obtain benefits, or, for those who have had difficulty returning back to civilian life and have run into have run into troubles? Can that one be answered?
Not exactly the way it's asked, but there are some comments.
Okay.
The court doesn't get involved in actually helping them find benefits, but the court could and has discussed it, and if we have money in the budget, I think it might one of these days be a program of our court, and that would be a veterans court, which would help those veterans who have interface with the court system, and through treatment, would then be able to connect with programs and benefits in the community. We've also talked with our justice partners in the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office about programs to help some of these veterans that have issues with the court.
This is one area in which I think Judge McLean has, as I understand it, made some efforts in terms of focusing on those veterans that have become involved as far as legal entanglements and troubles. And I applaud that. I think that that is absolutely required and necessary, especially in terms of a return to those that have done what they have, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan, where I think the pressures have just been overwhelming and that we've never dealt with or seen those before. To the extent that I can, as far as dealing with my clients, I try to channel them to the benefits that the Veterans Administration and their benefits provide to them, be it substance abuse, be it mental health aspects. And so in terms of trying to treat or address that, that's been a strong point that I think is probably we're going to see more in the future with the return of more and more individuals and some coming into the system.
Thank you.
Under what circumstances would you close a court hearing to the public and the press?
That goes to Mr. Ortner first.
Very rarely, as far as closed proceedings. I don't think in my experience on the criminal calendars, which we receive, or I've had cases that are high profile that media requests have been made. I can't think of a time in which the media has been denied as far as access to a hearing. It's an open court, and I would, that's the law, and that's the way it should be maintained or retained. It would only be in the event that there is confidential information that is sensitive to the point that it can't be disclosed, and those instances, it generally deals with documents, and it deals with paperwork that can be handled in a way where the press at least is aware of it, but not necessarily excluded as far as the knowing what is happening or going on.
There are certain proceedings that are confidential by statute and are closed to the public. Juvenile proceedings, some of the LPS proceedings, certain name changes, things like that there are by statute. In my experience, I've only closed a courtroom on 2 occasions. One was a confidential matter at the request of the public defender. It was a brief hearing and was later unsealed for the public. The other time was at the request of the bailiffs in the courtroom, again briefly. The press was allowed in, but the public was excluded because it was considered a security risk, and it was for the very shortest possible time. There were multiple defendants, and there was a concern that it wasn't safe.
I don't think we could get through this without raising this particular subject matter, and that's medical marijuana. It seems that between the state and the local laws, the county laws, which seems to be in flux, that it's very difficult to interpret the law. It seems to be in constant motion. Can you comment on how that works? How is it difficult? This is, yes, Judge.
And unfortunately, I can't. I have cases pending in front of me that deal with medical marijuana cases on those issues, and I cannot comment on it. I can't.
Not even generally speaking, okay.
No.
Then, I don't know if I...
You can ask Mr. Ortner, but I can't comment on it.
This may not be either, but your...
Want to try again?
your feelings on the death penalty.
In general, the death penalty is the law of our state, and if I'm required to hear a case involving the death penalty, I'm required to enforce the laws of the state.
It is the law in the state of California at this point, and the voters have had a chance to vote on that. I think it was the last election, November of 2013, and in a judicial position, you're required to follow what's in place as far as the law, and that's kind of the classic example of you may have personal or religious or other beliefs, but that's where push comes to shove, and you're required to follow what is handed down as far as the law.
Well, shoot, this is getting really good, and I've been told I have to wind it up. Phooey. So trying to pull together a question that is all-encompassing and really goes to the heart of this matter is really kind of difficult. So what I'm going to do is that there are a couple of questions that have to do with generalities of courts and the court system. The first part of it is, how would you respond if you thought the prosecution was overcharging to force a plea? And the second part of it is, what criteria would you use for deciding whether to impose or affirm sentences outside of standard ranges? And it goes to whom first? Goes to Mr. Ortner first.
Let me just...
Would you like me to repeat it?
let me make sure I have this. First part was prosecution overcharging,
Yes.
and then the second one
To
was
force a
sentences
plea.
what?
If the sentences are, going outside of the norm, either, where did it go? Great, I lost that part of that. But if, to impose or affirm a sentence that is outside of the standard ranges, of the sentencing guidelines.
With regard to prosecution overcharging, there's a system of what I would call checks and balances, and that's where criminal defense attorneys come into play. And I know, at least on my part, that I vigorously and represent clients and deal with issues as far as overcharging. But that's where I think needs to rest, is with diligent advocacy either on the prosecution or the defense side. As to sentencing and outside the norm, there's two parts, I think, to the question. First of all, there's federal sentencing in which there are guidelines that are rather rigid and have to be followed. We're not dealing with that. Number two is there are rules of court that that give a judge discretion as far as making certain findings as to what proper sentence to impose. And you have to go through those California rules of court, apply them properly, and that's where fairness and discretion comes into play.
As to overcharging, I agree with Mr. Ortner that there is a system of checks and balances. It first rests with a defense attorney. They can then make a motion to the court to address an issue if they think it needs to be addressed. If the judge believes that a defendant is being coerced into a particular plea, the judge can voir dire the defendant closely to make sure it's a voluntary plea and not one that should otherwise go to trial. With regard to the sentencing guidelines, there aren't sentencing guidelines in state court. Mr. Ortner is correct. And the range of sentencing for each crime is stated in the statutes, and a judge has to carefully consider all of the information provided to the court to determine what appropriate sentence to impose for any particular defendant.
We'll now move to the 2-minute closing statements, and Mr. Ortner, you'll be allowed to address the audience first.
In case I haven't mentioned it, what I bring in terms of my running for this position is I bring experience as far as trials, and that trial experience is from the defense side predominantly, and that's where you represent a client, and you're also working with the prosecutor, and you're working within the courtroom situation. And I have that experience, and I bring a great deal in terms of dealing with all parties within the courtroom setting to this as far as my background. Number two, and what do I stand for? I stand for justice. I stand for Lady Justice, who has the blindfold, who's oblivious to those things such as religion, race, sexual orientation, sex, that has the balance and the scales representing the weighing of the merits as far as the case. I will uphold the law, as mentioned, in terms of perhaps a death penalty type of situation. The law is what it is as far as the state of California, and I'm obligated to follow that as long as it's in place. Finally, I will respect all those who come into my courtroom. And it's a respect that's owed to the litigants. It's a respect that's owed to, as far as their attorneys. These are contentious, sometimes bitter aspects that come into play. That's what the legal process is sometimes. But each individual that's involved as far as a case is owed and deserves the respect that can be given to them by the person that is controlling the courtroom, and that's the judge, and that's what I would provide.
Okay. I've served in this position for 8 years. I've kept Butte County's citizens safe by making the rulings that I have, so that you can raise your families and have your businesses, retire, raise your children. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. They're all grown. Thankfully, they're all tax-paying citizens. I started having them when I was in law school. I know what it's like to work hard. I've participated in many community groups. I continue to do so even now. In terms of being on the bench, I've been endorsed by the Deputy District Attorneys Association, Crime Victims United, Judges Glessman, Judge Keithley, and Judge Deems. I've been trained already. I don't need to be trained to do this job. I do it every day when I go to work. My courtroom is run efficiently. It's run with fairness. It's run with an eye toward maintaining the decorum in the courtroom, as well as providing management of the various aspects of the courtroom, the bailiffs, the clerks, the court reporters, the witnesses, the parties, the attorneys, and making sure it all works together within the time that we're allotted for our particular cases. I would ask for your vote on June 3rd, or if you're voting by absentee, your vote now, so that I can continue to provide this service to our county, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Mr. Ortner. Second to last, we now have the treasurer tax collector, and this is going to be a little differently. I'm going to let our president, Jane Wanderer, address this issue. And again, we're going to take 2 minutes, and that's it. 2 minutes, no more. Just let them know that I made the error. Just let them know that I made the error.
Can everybody gather again? Well, this is going to be a little shorter than normal. If I can have your attention. Bye now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have a little bit of an unusual situation tonight. Normally, the League of Women Voters prefers to have at least 2 candidates appear for every office. Sometimes that's not the case. If it's a federal level office, we are prohibited by FEC and FCC rules to let a candidate go on by himself, a single chair. And I know it applies if you're videoed. At the state level and the local level, the League would prefer that we follow the same guidelines. However, that's not always possible. If you remember the last forum, we had Mr. Jawahar speak. Mr. Nielsen was not able to be here. And we allowed him to have a short presentation, take a few questions, and then a summation. What's happened tonight is even more unusual for the League because we did have a forum on April 24th to which both candidates were invited, and due to one reason or another they could not make it, and we thought we weren't even going to have this race before you this time. Well, in the meantime, our staff, no names, I'm part of the group too, each one thought that both candidates had been notified of this date. As it turns out, one candidate was not and didn't find out until way too late to be here tonight. So in all fairness, we contacted her, that's Kathleen Dwyer, and asked her if she would prepare a statement, and I will read it in her words. So when I speak now, I am Kathleen Dwyer, and then we'll go on to Mrs. Moak for her part of the forum. Good evening. I am speaking on behalf of Kathleen Dwyer, who's running for Butte County Treasurer Tax Collector. Years of hard work, preparation, and real-world experience has led me to the decision that Butte County needs fresh ideas. My background is financial management, with over 35 years in the private sector of financial management and 25 years of experience working and living in Butte County. I have been responsible for managing over $200 million in deposits as a VP branch manager, and over $500 million in deposits as VP Regional Market Manager. As a banking executive in the private sector, I have years of experience working to keep my customers happy. I will apply those same principles in service to the people of Butte County. Customer service has been a concern in the Butte County Tax Department. For example, this past Saturday, the Chico Enterprise Record highlighted the plight of a woman whose home was sold for a tax delinquency. The question is, how could she be delinquent for 5 years when she just got her name back on the title? This is an issue that should have been handled much better by the department. Another example of poor service can be seen when new home buyers get a supplemental tax bill in the mail. When they contact the tax department with questions seeking to understand their bill, they feel that they are a nuisance rather than believe the issues are resolved. Obviously, government has different objectives than the private sector, but customer service should be the same. The taxpayers should be treated by our county officers with courtesy and respect, or we could lose them to a different county. Government should be business-friendly, provide clear communication, and customer support to resolve issues. I will be your watchdog, I will be your treasurer. Watchdog and treasurer, 2 for the price of 1. I will handle both the tax revenue and the taxpayers with the same standards as the private sector. I also have ties to the community. I am a proud member of Rotary. I have also served on numerous nonprofit boards, including Feather River Hospital Foundation, Boys and Girls Club Paradise Board President, Parent Leadership Council for Paradise Charter Middle School, Executive Director for Paradise Community Village, made up of 5 different nonprofit and governmental entities. Alzheimer's Association started Millie's Place in Paradise, Paradise Irrigation Finance Board, California Park Homeowners, Sierra Sunrise Village Homeowners, and have served as a Paradise Chamber of Commerce ambassador. I will give the rest of her speech at the end as a closing.
Thank you, Jane. Ms. Moak, you may make your opening statement. Push where it says push.
Okay, very good. Thank you. My name is Peggy Moak, and first I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for making it possible for me to be here this evening. I appreciate that. I'm running for the position of Butte County Treasurer Tax Collector, something that has been my long-term career goal ever since beginning service with the county in March of 2004. Previously, I'd worked in bank management for over 20 years. I've managed bank branches in Paradise, Chico, and Orville for Great Western Bank and Washington Mutual, and also did a 3-year regional stint covering 18 branches up and down the state, covering operations, audit integrity, customer service, training, and personnel. The Treasurer Tax Collector is critical to the financial well-being of the county, its school districts, and special districts, responsible for prudent investment of their public funds in the pooled investment portfolio. And I'd like to say that the portfolio has done very well over the years. In fact, for 2013, we were ranked number 7 out of the 58 counties in the state for the yield that was achieved. And in this rate environment, that's pretty tough to do. I'm confident I'm the most engaged, knowledgeable, and experienced candidate for this position. I've served as Assistant Treasurer Tax Collector for 6 years, building the knowledge base and skill sets necessary to effectively oversee the operations of the 3 diverse divisions of the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office. We have the Treasury Division, Property Tax Collections, and Central Collections. And to give you an idea how different they all are, of course, property tax is pretty obvious that we do collect all of the property taxes on behalf of the county and the state, all of the school districts and cities. And we also, as was mentioned in this letter, must perform every other year a tax auction for any properties that have not been able to pay, have their property taxes paid for a period of 5 years. In Central Collections, we have a staff of over 10 people that collect on delinquent fees and fines for the courts and for the county departments. So it's a very different group of individuals. I'm currently serving as Treasurer Tax Collector. I was appointed by the Board of Supervisors unanimously at the recommendation of Linda Barnes upon her retirement in February. She had every confidence that I can do the job right after working hand in hand with her for the last 10 years. In my role as Assistant Treasurer Tax Collector and as Manager of Finance and Investment, I directly manage the investments for the pooled portfolio, which averages about $400 million. The portfolio has a strategy that is basically buy and hold. We have a very prudent investment policy that's approved annually by the board. It's a very low-risk portfolio because it is of paramount importance that we protect the public funds. In addition to that, I've coordinated the county's tax and revenue anticipation notes, which are short-term borrowing functions, which is a very labor-intensive process. I have coordinated the issuance of certificates of participation for debt for the county, managed their disclosure and post-issuance responsibilities. I've also coordinated issuance of general obligation bonds for the school districts in the county. And I'd like to say that Linda Barnes and I have worked very hard to put together a team of professionals that are not only customer service oriented, but they really do a top-notch job. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. David?
So you've worked both inside and outside the government. Were you a critic of government before you joined it, and what's been different now that you're on that side of things?
You know, that's interesting. When I was in the private sector, I think like many people, I thought of county workers as pencil pushers. And I was very proud of being, you know, a driven, ambitious, hardworking person in the private sector, and I worked, you know, 60, 70 hours a week and didn't really think too much about what the county did. And when Linda Barnes came to work for the county and started sharing some of the the work that the treasurer's office was doing and how interesting she was finding it and the challenges that were there. It really opened my eyes. And over the years, I think it was about a year and a half or so of conversations, I told her that, well, if something ever came open in the county, I would certainly be interested in considering that. And I have found it to be a very rewarding experience. Thank you. I have a great respect for what the county does now.
You mentioned it. What are some of the challenges that you face? What are some of the tougher parts of this job?
Sure. I'll go one division at a time, if you don't mind. For the Treasury, I have to say the biggest challenge over the last 5 years, and will continue to be a challenge into the future, is finding safe, secure investments that are liquid and readily available that will achieve a reasonable yield for our pool participants. You know, the interest that we are able to provide them is critical to their operating budgets, and they count on that. And I will say that we use a 5-year investment strategy that takes advantage of the yield curve. So many counties use a shorter strategy, much like the local agency investment fund does, say maybe an 18-month or 2-year horizon. And if we compare those two, the LAIF yield against the county's yield, over the last 5 years, in each one of those 5 years on a rolling average basis, we have earned $4.6 million more for our pool participants that's divided amongst them than we would have had we employed a short-term strategy. So again, the challenge is maintaining a reasonable yield for those folks.
Time's up. Yeah.
Oh, stop. Okay.
Got to obey the stop sign.
All right.
But actually, this kind of goes in, you know, as a continuation of it is, you know, what are your goals for the office over the next couple of years?
Okay. Right now, in our Central Collections Division, we are implementing a victim restitution program in cooperation with the courts and the district attorney, and that's turned out to be quite a large endeavor, and we're real happy to work on this pilot program. It's something that will benefit victims of crime, and what has been happening in the past is the courts would turn over any delinquent victim restitution claims directly to the victims and allow them to collect those themselves. And so what really happens is that most of the victims did not receive their compensation that was ordered by the court. So this is a pilot program whereon we take the responsibility for having our collectors contact the defendants and the convicted criminals. Yes? Okay. All right. The challenge in that is not only the logistics of putting it all together, but also making sure that we're able to continue with our annual growth in revenues. We try and do at least 5% better each year in revenue collection on our regular fees and fines. Thank you.
I know we can all go find out, but not everybody does so. Who's giving you money and how much?
Okay. Most of my campaign contributions have come from myself. I've put about, by the time I'm done, $25,000 into this. My sister Dot has contributed mightily. I don't think her husband wants to know how much. That's what I would say. And
It's going to be on the list, right?
It will be on the list. And my mother also donated $5,000. Then I have a couple of friends who have donated $1,000 apiece, and several who have given me smaller amounts, you know, 100 here, 50 there. It, I think, is a position that ends up being largely self-funded, but I appreciate contributions. Yes.
I won't pretend to understand what your daily job is like, but can you give a description of a day at work for you, and how many people do you supervise?
Okay. We have 25 regular staff in the office and 7 extra help, and the extra help population varies depending on what's going on. Right now it's pretty intense because of the tax auction and when property taxes are collected. On a daily basis, I come in, I check my voicemail, I start reading emails and responding to all of those. If I'm doing investments that morning, I look at all of the offerings that are out there and determine what's going to fit best in the ladder, the investment ladder, and place calls and get competitive bids, and that process usually takes a couple of hours. I get lots of emails on lots of different projects, anything from benefits review, deferred compensation committee matters, financings that information is needed on, We might have personnel matters to deal with. With the tax auction that's coming up, I have a lot of special projects where I'm working on consideration for properties that should be withdrawn from the auction due to special circumstances. Thank you.
This is actually going to be the last question, and this, you know, is for voters. How should voters, we as voters, measure the job performance of this particular office when we cast our votes? We don't have legislation that's been passed by the treasurer or tax collector that we can look up to measure past performance.
Right.
So how do we do
How
this?
do you evaluate? I would say there's a couple of different ways, but it is a little bit nebulous because it takes people who are really involved in maybe the Board of Supervisors meetings and actually looking at the website to see what the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office has been doing. We have reports available. For instance, the investment performance is posted every quarter, and you can take a look at that. There's reports from the State Controller's Office that, you know, ranks how the portfolios have done in terms of yield. 30 seconds. All right. It's difficult for the public to really be in a position to evaluate well, I have to say. I would agree with you. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the public might have, and I would just encourage everyone to take a look at the website and take a good review of our layout, the way that we have a reporting, the transparency that is obviously there, and also know that the board has always had nothing but good things to say about the operations of the office. Thank you.
Okay, so our president, Jane Wanderer, is going to read a brief closing from Ms. Dwyer, and then Ms. Moak, you'll get to make your closing statement.
Thank you.
Again, a reminder, I'm speaking as Kathleen Dwyer right now, reading her prepared statement. The question was asked, why was she running for office? And her answer is, democracy is based on citizens having an equal shot at running for public office. Too often at the county level, the management positions are filled from within by a chosen few. In the past, the treasurer position has not even had a race. The people deserve to have a choice. I offer you a choice between a county employee insider and myself, an outsider, with 35 years of private banking experience. I will not be there to represent the inner circle of bureaucrats. I will be there to represent the people. Kathleen Dwyer for Butte County Treasurer, Tax Collector, keeping Butte County in the black. Thank you.
Thank you. Over the years, I have developed a thorough and appreciative understanding of just how local government works, the interaction of the various departments and the role of administration and the Board of Supervisors in getting important work done, and how critical it is for all departments, including the Treasurer's Department, and entities to work together cooperatively and timely for the benefit of the county's overall health and welfare and to provide reliable and effective services for our citizens. The Treasurer Tax Collector's Office has an outstanding reputation for professionalism, responsiveness, knowledgeable and helpful staff, accuracy and accountability, and transparency in reporting. We've achieved that through open communication, strong leadership, conscientious staff training and development, encouragement of fresh, innovative ideas, and implementation of technological advances to continuously improve and streamline operations. The result is a team that is engaged and proud of their work and proud of working productively for Butte County and its citizens. In closing, I'd like to say that the Treasurer's position is one that requires a great deal of experience in order to accomplish effectively. And it's an important one. In fact, it's critical to the health and welfare of the county. I've been honored with the endorsements of each one of the Board of Supervisors and all of the elected officials at Butte County and many civic leaders. And these folks that have endorsed me are those that have observed my performance for the last 10 years and know exactly how I work. I believe I have the best qualifications for the job, and I'm the right person for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Up next, we will have Professor Charlie Turner from reading the pros and cons on the 2 ballot measures for this evening. We can, we'll take a 1-minute break to exchange things. 1 minute. I'm keeping you to a minute.
Do it in like 30 seconds.
I'll bring you a nice clean glass.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats. Madam President, if you could please take your seat.
Thanks, Eleanor. I'm Charlie Turner. I'm not running for office, so you don't need to vote for me. I'm going to spend a few minutes going somewhat quickly over the 2 ballot initiatives. Before I do so, though, just another plug for League of Women Voters Pros and Cons, which you can access outside in the lobby, and also the Easy Voter Guide. These are documents that are also available on the League of Women Voters of California website. So if you forget something or want more info, that's a good place to look. Also, keep in mind, this is something you've probably gotten in the mail already. It's your official voter guide and information about what is on the ballot, and you've probably more recently gotten your actual sample ballot. So if you want to know what it is you're going to be voting on, this is the stuff, including the offices we heard about tonight. So thanks for being here. If you do have questions or corrections to my observations, please do offer them. For the June 3rd election, you have to be registered by May 19th. If you want to request a mail ballot, you have to do that by May 27th. So June 3rd, we're voting on 2 ballot initiatives that have been placed there by the state legislature. These are not ones where people collected signatures outside of Safeway. These are ones that the state legislature voted to send to us, the people of California, to vote on. One's a bond act and one's a constitutional amendment. The voter information guide is still 48 pages long, though, even though there are just these 2 things. So I'll try and summarize. They're numbered 41 and 42. 41 is called the Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Bond Act. So as I mentioned, it's placed there by the state legislature. The vote was 36-0 in the Senate, 78-0 in the Assembly. This should let you know it was not a partisan issue. What would it do? It would authorize the state to sell $600 million in general obligation bonds. That money would target homeless veterans through producing multifamily supportive housing, affordable transitional housing, and affordable rental housing for veterans who earn less than 80% of the average income. The money will be used to provide low-cost loans to developers as an incentive to build or renovate this type of housing. These bond funds were originally approved by the voters in 2008 in something called the Calvet Home and Farm Loan Program, and that was approved by 63% of the voters. So in a sense, we already voted on this. So what is this? Well, this is a modification to that program that reduces the 2008 program by about $600 million and creates a new program of about $600 million. So it's kind of a wash. This would redirect some of the specifics on how that money is spent. There are about 15,000 homeless veterans in California, which is about 11% of the total homeless population in California, and veterans are twice as likely to be homeless as non-veterans. The impact on the state budget, it would increase state bond repayment costs by about $50 million annually over 15 years. Total repayment cost is about then 125% of the issuance cost of the bonds. This is not a big impact on our overall bond indebtedness as a state, but there's a good little lecture on bond indebtedness in the voter information guide if you want to know more about that topic. As far as I can tell, there's been no polling on this or the other initiative. What are the pros? Well, low-income and homeless veterans need this program that would construct new housing and improve existing housing for them. And it would save taxpayer dollars in health care and public safety by creating safe and affordable housing. What are the cons? The question is raised, well, is it really wise to change the rules of this program that already exists in another form right now? Who are the supporters of Prop 41? They include Coalition for Veterans Housing, Governor Jerry Brown, former Speaker John Perez, the American Legion, the Vietnam Veterans of California, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the LA Times and the Sacramento Bee have also endorsed. Opposition, this is an opportunity to talk about a fun little fact about your voter information guide. The opposition is written by Gary Wesley. So who's Gary Wesley? He's an attorney actually from here in Northern California who's taken on the role of writing rebuttals to initiatives. And he's been doing that for over 30 years. He started in 1978. And he doesn't necessarily have strong feelings about everything that he writes a rebuttal or an opposition statement on. He just says, well, you know, the voters should at least have the opportunity to see some language on why they might want to vote against something. So when no one else steps up to say, I'm opposed to this initiative, Gary Wesley does the job. There's no other formal opposition. I couldn't find a website anywhere that is opposing Prop 41. I'll go through 42 as well, and then we'll see if there are any questions. Prop 42 is called the Public Records Open Meetings State Reimbursement to Local Agencies. So this is also put there by the legislature. It's a legislative constitutional amendment. The vote was 37-0 in the Senate and 78-0 in the Assembly. What would this do? It would make it a constitutional requirement for local governments to comply with the Public Records Act and the Brown Act. So the Public Records Act is the state version of the Freedom of Information Act, where you can get information about public records from state and local public agencies in California, and the Brown Act covers the public nature of meetings, so it's open meeting law. So these are already state laws. This would put them into this would sort of constitutionalize the requirement that local governments follow these rules. And it would also transfer the cost of these public access laws from the state government to the local governments that are being asked for the information, right? So right now, if you do a Public Records Act request with the City of Chico, the City of Chico is required by state law to fulfill that request, and then they can bill the state, right? This would make this not only a state law, but a state constitutional requirement for the City of Chico to comply with the act, and they would bear the costs themselves. So that's the difference. impact on the state budget. It would probably reduce payments to local governments from the state by 10 million plus annually, with potential corresponding increase in local government costs. So the amount of money stays is probably about a wash. It would just be not the state government paying for this, but the local governments who are actually fulfilling the requests. Again, no polling on this as far as I could tell. The pros. It creates a constitutional guarantee for public access laws. It would prevent local agencies from denying a request based on cost. It creates incentives for local governments to be innovative and efficient in following these laws. And the thinking there being, if they're not just billing the state and they're actually having to pay for the costs of the requests themselves, they might find cheaper ways of doing it. And finally, that it allows the legislature to amend public records laws with less fear of increasing costs. The reason this came about is because in one of the recent budget crises last year, the state legislature actually toyed with the idea of suspending the requirement that local governments comply with this act for budgetary reasons. And then the public said, no, you shouldn't do that. So they put it back in, but they said instead they would put this on the ballot, transferring the costs. So a way of the state government saving money. Cons, you could put this in the Constitution without transferring costs to local governments, is one con that has been raised. Supported by Jerry Brown, supported by Mark Leno and Dan Logue, one of the few things probably supported by both of those folks, is supported by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, supported by the California Newspapers Association, the League of Women Voters of California, the California Labor Federation, and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Opposition, once again, Gary Wesley has written the opposition for this one. And then I also found there's an organization called Rural County Representatives of California, which includes, that organization includes 33 counties, including Butte County, that has stated their opposition to this one by, so you could check out their website. That's Rural County Representatives of California. That's what I know about these propositions. I'm happy to entertain your questions or comments. Linda.
I am surprised that there is such a mixture of groups that are pro this last one. Can you explain why that is so?
I think it's just being seen as one of these sort of good government measures where, you know, if the costs are being borne by local governments, then or if, you know, if they're the ones fulfilling the request, then that's where the cost should be as well, rather than the state reimbursing local governments for things that are being requested of local governments.
Does it seem to you that because the state would obviously think it's terrific if the local governments pay for this rather than the state paying for it, but they're couching it in such a way that make it sound like the local governments wouldn't do this good work of providing these documents unless we pass this thing, which it seems to me that there's something a little slimy in here, I think. It sounds to me as though one part of it is saying, yes, we have to have all this access to public documents, which I know our local government has always tried to provide, but it gets expensive. So the state's saying, okay, you pay for it at the local level. So
now Gary Wesley and Carol Burr are on record raising questions about it.
Yeah, but
no. I mean, I think you're right. It's probably something of a false threat to say, oh, local governments aren't going to comply if the state doesn't pass this. You know, that being said, yeah, I mean, the state government could continue paying these costs. I think maybe their better argument is the one about innovation, in that there's no incentive for local governments to reduce the costs of compliance if they're just sending a bill to Sacramento.
I have a little comment, if you don't mind. From the government perspective, we fulfill public Record Act requests all the time, and it is required by law, and we comply within a 10-day time frame. It does take a little bit of time. The people who are making those requests, in some cases, do have to compensate the county for certain records, depending on how extensive they are. But the truth of the matter is, on the state hasn't paid local governments for doing any of this work for years, ever since SB 90. So I think they're really just trying to clean up the scenario and set the record straight, because they're not paying. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, this is about the veterans and the homes. How about building hospitals up here for veterans? Because we certainly need a hospital in Chico, because we have to go to Redding or we have to go to Sacramento for any major stuff. So I'm wondering if we could throw some of that money into hospitals.
Well, we can't. That's not what's on the ballot. This is just the housing issue. Yeah, I would guess that might get some support, though, if we were to create an initiative to address veterans hospitals. Veterans bond issues tend to do pretty well at the ballot. The previous one in 2008, as I mentioned, passed by like 63%. So.
Okay, is everybody done? Let's have a hand for Charlie. He always comes through on the ballot propositions. How many are there going to be in November? We want you back.
More than 2.
Okay. Thank you all for coming tonight, and don't forget to vote, whether it's by mail or at the polls, and check your polling place. I noticed mine changed. So log on to the county clerk's website or check your voter registration card. Some of them have changed. Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
May I?